Consideration and I'm ready if need be.
You coming up on Thursday, I heard. I'll be there.
No charge. Sometimes before. Oh, definitely will be. Yes, yes. Because this is. We may have to go through layers. In addition to that, what we promised to do, I met with the guy this morning. We would kind of look over it. I'll track that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting. Let's try this again. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting for December 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. We please have roll call.
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Parnas, Commissioner Preston,
Here.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Here.
Mayor Gans.
Here. Will you please stand for a moment of silence and our pledge of allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we please have acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes for the Marine Advisory Board meeting of September 19th, 2024, and our code compliance meeting minutes of October 25th, 2024?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Approval of the agenda tonight for December 17th, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Madam Clerk?
For those attending via Zoom online wishing to speak under public comment or on an item that's open for public input, please click raise hand at the bottom under the reactions tab, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that Commissioner Parnas is not able to be here tonight. He's looking for an excused absence. Sorry, look for a motion.
Motion to excuse the absence.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Would you like to do the honors on this since you asked to place this on the agenda?
I would appreciate it,
You got it.
Mayor. Thank you very much.
All the time.
Oftentimes, there will be questions when the city attaches themselves to a specific group or to an organization. What does it do for our city? And that's legitimate questions, and I don't have a problem with that being asked. Community Cares in the city of Deerfield Beach is doing great things, really great things under the leadership of Joel Smith and his wife. They're doing great things in the city. In a casual conversation, I was just talking to him and he was explaining some things that had happened recently with ophthalmology and having him making some phone calls, and a partnering took place wherein there are doctors that will be coming into the city of Deerfield Beach when it comes to eye care. But I want him to explain this because this is huge. The city of Deerfield Beach is a recipient of something that's really going to affect our kids. A friend of mine was just telling me the other day that there was a kid in one of our school systems that was not receiving good grades. Kid kind of set off by himself and just was having struggles in school. Come to find out, he couldn't see well. Vision was blurred, and he didn't know how to tell anybody. And so that was the reason. When they corrected his eye situation, his grades shot up. And Community Cares is doing a great thing with this. And Joel, if you would come up and explain this to the commission, I really asked initially that the residents be explained, but it's just something I asked too, that he explained to the commission and let them know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joel Smith, Deerfield Beach Community Cares, 959 Southeast Sixth Avenue, 33441. And thank you, Commissioner Preston, for the opportunity. So what we did, we're concerned about our school children not having proper ophthalmological care and not being able to afford that care. So I was doing some research, and I made a connection through Nova Southeastern University on some other initiatives we're trying to bring to the city, but they connected me to the Florida Hike-In Children's Vision Program, which is in Miami. And I spoke to their director, Angela Vasquez, and we hit it off very quickly. And I explained what I was hoping to have happen, and she exploded far past what I had hoped. So what they've committed to is they can do examinations of 70 students per day. They'll come to every school in Deerfield Beach at no charge to parents. If the child needs glasses, there will be no charge for the glasses. They will be at every school for students under 18 years old. If parents sign up 300 kids from a school, they'll keep coming back until all of the students are seen. It's a simple, you go online as a parent, click on the
Joel,
QR
if you don't
code.
mind steering that towards us so we can let them all.
Sorry. I will give them to you.
Go ahead and give it to our clerk right there.
You go to the QR code and you sign up. I then reached out to the school district because I had done this without their partnership. I called our representative, Nora Rupert. She said, this is wonderful. They connected me to the North Area office, Michelle Stein, who put together a schedule of schools, which I will also give you. Starting schedule. And that means that as many kids as parents sign up for the opportunity will be screened, and as many of them that need glasses will receive glasses at no charge.
Awesome. That is phenomenal.
If I could have the whole dais come down and present this to him, because it's not a one-person award.
Sure. Would you like to read what's on the proclamation for? Or the certificate?
I need some glasses. I'm just kidding.
There's a free sign up we can get you. This certificate of recognition for Joel Smith and Deerfield Beach Community Cares. The city of Deerfield Beach applauds Joel Smith and Deerfield Beach Community Cares for their concerted efforts leading to the availability of free vision screening and glasses for every school-age youth up to 18 years old in Deerfield Beach Public Schools. Joel, thank you so much. The City of Deerfield Beach Department of Community Services, also known as the Northeast Focal Point at the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging, provides a structured and comprehensive array of programs and services that improve the independence, community engagement, and quality of life for adults, seniors, and children of the Northern Broward County and Deerfield Beach. And in 1981, the City of Deerfield Beach and the Area Agency on Aging of Broward County partnered to develop then known as the Center for, then known as the Center for Active Aging. Over the last 44 years, the Center for Active Aging has expanded. It also operates and administers an Alzheimer's and multicultural daycare center and a preschool administered by the Bezos Academy. It is the only intergenerational campus in Broward County. On August 29, 1986, the Northeast Focal Point CASA Inc., known as CASA Board, was born, a 501c3 nonprofit assembled to assist with the efforts of maintaining a vibrant Northeast Focal Point, and my goodness, have they done that. Since 1986, the CASA Board has championed the Northeast Focal Point by funding special events, hosting celebrations, donating countless hours of volunteerism, and hosting many staple fundraising events to generate funds to help offset some of the cost of operating the Northeast Focal Point. Have no doubt, if it were not for the CASA Board, that center would not still be open. The City of Deerfield Beach has been fortunate that the CASA Board has called Deerfield Beach home for the past 38 years. Countless seniors have benefited from the hard work and effort of the CASA Board, and the City of Deerfield Beach would like to say thank you, CASA Board, for all you do for the Northeast Focal Point and our Braithwaite Center. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge Commissioner Vinny Andriano from the City of Hillsborough Beach. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Catherine Hofstein.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, citizens of Deerfield Beach. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you once again for this opportunity to present these fine detectives and deputies and tell you some more amazing deeds that are being done here in our city. First, I'm going to take you back, and I wish all of them could join us tonight, by the way. I'm recognizing more than just these ladies and gentlemen here, but obviously due to schedules and operational needs, I never always get all of them. But a great sampling of some real heroic crime fighters. I'm going to take it back first to October 27th, 2024, Deputies Blackson and Spector. So Deputy Blackson, one of our FTOs, our training officers, who's been here before. With his trainee, he demonstrated exceptional vigilance, professionalism, and dedication to public service during a routine traffic stop. And as we all unfortunately know, we use that terminology, but there's nothing routine about a traffic stop. And unfortunately, we lost a deputy in South Florida, or actually more North Florida this week, unfortunately, a traffic stop due to a very similar situation. And it's just how dangerous these are. They pulled a vehicle over for an expired tag. Their situational awareness and attention to detail enabled them to identify a potential threat when they observed a rear passenger with a suspicious bulge in his clothing. They recognized the pattern of an AR-15 rifle magazine. Recognizing the potential danger, the deputies acted calmly and decisively by ordering the individual out of the vehicle and securing a firearm that was indeed in his waistband. It was later identified as a fully loaded Mossberg 715 pistol. This is a machine gun, an automatic assault rifle that's been compressed down into a pistol size, but still with the same deadly firepower. This is unfortunately what we do contend with on our streets. While retrieving the weapon, The subject, not surprisingly, attempted to flee on foot. Deputies Blackson and Spector pursued him, and though coordinated efforts and the appropriate use of force safely subdued him after a brief struggle. Their swift and effective response prevented any escalation and ensured the safety of all individuals involved, including the suspect and bystanders. In addition to this arrest, the deputies managed the incident with care and professionalism, confirming no additional contraband was present in the vehicle, and released 2 other subjects without incident. They also facilitated the arrest of the driver on separate traffic warrants. It's worth noting that the firearm recovery and the arrest of the suspect, who has a history of multiple felonies, sadly not surprisingly in 2024 alone, which demonstrates the deputy's critical role in removing potential threats from the community. Their actions truly reflect a commitment to proactive policing and public safety here in Deerfield Beach, which is a central mission of our department. For their outstanding performance in a challenging and obviously very dangerous situation, Deputy Blackson and Spector are hereby commended for the exemplary service. Their conduct upholds the highest standards of law enforcement and serve as a model for our professionalism, vigilance, and dedication. That was case number 1. These fine specimens here, this is case number 2, November 22nd. Deputy Corlick, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, along with another deputy, responded to multiple burglaries that occurred during the overnight hours within the central part of our city. Demonstrating proactive and a thorough approach, the deputies conducted an extensive canvass gathering critical information and suspect descriptions. Their diligence and commitment to detail provided a solid foundation for the investigation. It's important to note, these deputies don't just act like report takers. They don't just go out and throw a little fingerprint dust on a vehicle. They really take proactive, comprehensive, technical approaches to these cases. And the information they revealed that was so critical, it allowed these detectives here, Detective Bradley, Detective Hales, and Detective Santa Maria, to immediately create a nexus to some suspects that were discovered in a nearby hotel. Their efforts led them to the Extended Stay America Select Suites, where they successfully located and apprehended multiple individuals responsible for these burglaries. Within 3 separate rooms, they safely took all suspects into custody, took them back to the office, and not only did they receive confessions for their involvement in these burglaries, they also received a confession for a previous armed burglary of a vehicle and recovered a firearm off of our streets that was associated with that burglary. This commendation recognizes the deputies and their detectives for their exemplary performance in a challenging and complex investigation. Their dedication to public safety, keen investigative instincts, and teamwork, most importantly, directly led to the successful apprehension of multiple dangerous suspects and the recovery of stolen property, mind you, within the span of 1 day, which is really amazing. Their actions reflect the highest standards of law enforcement and serve as a testament to your professionalism, your diligence, and your commitment to protecting our community. And for that, I commend you. And I congratulate you on being selected as our Employees of the Month.
Great job, Adam.
Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the Deerfield Beach Affordable Housing Advisory Committee Incentive Report for fiscal year 2023-2024, authorizing submission of the incentive report to the Florida Housing Coalition and the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Greetings, Mayor, Commission, Jonathan Salas, Director of Community Services. And tonight before you, I have the incentive report that's due to the state of Florida by December 31st of each year. So these are 11 strategies that the state provide to municipalities to look over, to identify any strategies that will work for the city to help with its affordable housing crisis. So this report is triggered when the city receive a full allocation of funding, which is anything over 300,000. This was a very fortunate year for the city. We received an allocation of just over $1 million in SHIP funding. So that's what triggered this report. So the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee is a unique board of 11 members from the community, and their goal is to look over strategies to see how could we improve our affordable housing program. So we looked at the 11 incentives that the state provided, and you'll see the first two there. They're mandatory, they're required. So the first one is expedite permitting. So if you're completing an affordable housing project in the city of Deerfield Beach, and you come to the Community Services Department and we can identify that's an affordable housing project, that permit will be expedited through our permanent department. So that's something that's mandatory and we adopt it each year. And then our ongoing review of our policies. So we're always looking at our policies to make sure that we have the best policies to combat our affordable housing crisis. So now we go down to our public land inventory. So that's something that we've been doing for the past 2 years or year or so. So we have a record of all of the city-owned properties that are suitable for affordable housing, and we have that list on the city's website. You can go to the next slide, Heather. So another incentive that we adopted is the density flexibility. So this allows us to go higher and create more units within a lot for affordable housing. And then we have what we call our flexible lot configurations. And this allows for setbacks to offer more freedom on the lot. And then we have our development near transportation hubs. So if we can develop near transportation hubs, we can reduce costs for transportation. And now you allow a client to have more funding for housing. So next slide, Heather. So these are the incentives that we did not include. And it's very interesting that the state provide these incentives. However, some of these incentives, they're contradictory to state statute as well as some of the city ordinances. So fee waivers, we can't do fee waivers for affordable housing. So we said no to that. Reservation of infrastructure capacity. That's pretty much when you're kind of holding the land for future use. We don't want to do that with affordable housing. Parking setbacks, modifications to street requirements, and then ADUs. So it's something that some of these, they go against state statute as well as the city code. So again, as I mentioned, 11 incentives, 2 are mandatory. The Affordable Housing Advisory Committee is recommending 6 for approval, and 5 we can't move forward with. That's my presentation. Any questions?
Yes, Commissioner Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. On the second slide, it said density and flexibility. Is there any association to that, to the Live Local Act?
No.
Jonathan, just a question. You mentioned the Sadowski Fund. Is that still being rated, or are they actually allowing those funds to be used for affordable housing the way they're supposed to?
They're allowing us to use it for affordable housing right now, but each year it's up for scrutiny. So
Okay.
we'll see what this year holds in Tallahassee.
So that's probably been 2 years in a row they haven't swept it, which is good.
Awesome.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, the Sadowski Fund was set up back in 1992 to go towards, with 2 separate funds specifically to go to affordable housing. In 2002, the legislature decided, because it was a boom at the time, to start sweeping that money out, put it in the general fund for the state of Florida, which has helped us get into this affordable housing crisis that we're in, because up until 2022, they would regularly deplete it to the tune of about $2 billion. So in that time period. So it's nice to know that they finally decided to stop touching it and leave it for the purposes that it's intended for. Thank you, Jonathan.
We're going to hang out tonight. The next presentation is mine as well.
You got it. Are you looking for action item on item number 4?
Yes.
Okay,
Adoption.
I'm gonna let you sit down. I'm gonna open it to the public to see if there's any public comments, and then we'll go from there. Anyone from the public care to comment on item number 4?
Hi, good evening. Karen Shelley, 190 Durham D, candidate City Commission District 3. I just want to praise the work of Jonathan Salas. He's an incredible grant writer. The money being brought to the city for affordable housing is just great. And it's so good to have somebody with those skills with our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Close it to the public. Commission,
Motion to approve?
Second.
motion from Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Hudak. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 5 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the 2023-2024 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, for the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development Programs, authorizing submission of the CAPER to HUD, providing for implementation and effective date.
Again, Jonathan Salas, Director of Community Services. So the presentation I have before you tonight is for the CAPER. As Anthony mentioned, this is the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, and it's due to HUD each year by December 31st. So we're in perfect timing right now. So tonight I'm going to discuss the purpose of the CAPER, the elements of the CAPER, the goals and outcome, the resources, and the citizens' participation portion of the CAPER. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see. So the CAPER is pretty much, it's a recap of the annual action plan that comes before the commission every year, the top of the year. So the CAPER is summarizing, did the city meet the goals set forth in the annual action plan? So that's pretty much what the CAPER does. Next slide, Heather. So there's 9 elements to the CAPER, and I'm not going to read all 9, but we'll get into them. So the first element to the CAPER is the goals and outcomes. So this CAPER is the last year of our current consolidated plan, which our consolidated plan is from 2020 to 2024. And this is for the 2023-24 action plan. So our goals was to increase affordable housing, to provide infrastructure improvements, and increase access to public services. So as you look at our priority 1, increase access to affordable housing, we were able to assist 19 households with housing this year. Out of that 19, 12 was purchase assistance, which those are pretty good numbers. After COVID, since COVID, we haven't seen an increase in purchases, but we were able to do 12 this year, and 7 of those are the properties that we did with Habitat for Humanity. So that helped us get there. And then we were able to complete 7 projects through our home rehabilitation program. So that is our priority 1, affordable housing. So if we look at our priority 2, which is infrastructure improvements, we were able to finish the playground at Oviedo McKeithen Park, which looks very nice out there. We're also looking at sidewalk improvements very near the City Hall here in this area around the Center for Active Aging, as well as we have an asbestos pipe replacement project that we're doing. And this is a larger project, so we're going to do it in phases. So we just put a small allocation of the CDBG for this year towards that, and we'll look at each year adding an allocation so that we can get that project done in phases. So when you look at the resources, well, priority 3, increase the public services. So with public services, we have our senior transportation program, which our numbers were fairly low, but they're rising slowly. So we're able to assist 27 seniors with transportation services. Our health and wellness program, we assisted more than 100 seniors with recreation programs. And then we have our adult daycare, which we had a total of 26 applicants in that program for this year. So now we look at the resources for the program. With the resources, CDBG funds for fiscal year 23 received just over $700,000. And we had a combination of rollovers from a combination of years. And when we say rollovers, it's kind of like the Oviedo McKeithen project that was funded in fiscal year 22, however, it didn't finish till 23. So those funds rolled over. So that number is the $890,000 are the funds that we rolled over. And you'll see we expended $750,000 for the year in CDBG funds. So CDBG isn't our only source of funding. We receive SHIP funds, which we just talked about that in the previous presentation, as well as home. So you can see we received $244,000 in home and $1 million in SHIP funds, which we leverage with our CDBG program. So here we are now, citizen participation. We had a public comment period that began on December 2nd and ended yesterday, December 16th. We're now here at our public hearing on December 17th. So I'm asking for commission to adopt this CAPER so that we can submit it to HUD by the December 30th deadline. That's my presentation. Any questions?
Commissioner Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. When it comes to the CAPER, are you as a director, are you pleased with what's being presented?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, with the purchase assistance program, with the cost of housing now, it's pretty hard to find anything that's affordable. So it's a juggling act to find a quality applicant to meet the low to moderate income guidelines that HUD has established with the price of homes today. So that's that's science to get to that number, as well as with our rehab projects as well. When we see inflation, the cost of inflation, our projects aren't going as far as they once upon a time would go. So not too long ago, we brought before a commission to increase the subsidy amount to 70,000. So now we assist residents with 70,000 as opposed to the 50, so that we can get more work done on those projects. So I'm very pleased with what we were able to accomplish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item? I'm gonna close it to the public.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
We are now at the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes extended, unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If you have the public comment on an item that's on tonight's agenda, it's after the title is read into the record and the public comment period is open for that item. You can present at that time. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibility shall be permitted.
Anyone online? Ms. Bolowich, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is April Bolowich, 899 Northeast 4th Street, Deerfield Beach. And I have a couple things. I wanted to say regarding the CASA, Northeast Focal Point really reflects the multicultural community of our neighborhood. It was there that my family came to know the legendary Mrs. Hattie, the legendary Mr. Jerry on his bicycle, and Focal Point employees, Angie, Sid, Hugh, Jane, Diana, and the well-educated bachelor degreed pre-K teachers. It's a pretty amazing place. And I want to say a big thank you to the folks at CASA and for the city for recognizing the magic that they make happen. I'm still trying to figure out why Commissioner Hudak said that he would be violating the law if he voted against the rezoning on the 3rd, 2 weeks ago. Considering the fact that hundreds of his constituents whom I thought he was representing were against the rezoning, I'm still trying to understand the way he voted. So I have a couple of questions for Commissioner Hudak, please. Are you an attorney? Do you work for a law firm? And just to let you know, I've read the city's own definition of compatibility, so I would really like to know exactly how you were obligated to vote for something that was clearly not compatible according to the city's own code. You did cite the unique property characteristics that impede the development of this property, but you didn't list a single of those supposed characteristics in your statement. And knowing that you can't manufacture your own hardship, I'm really interested in knowing what the hardship was. And that is all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Roger Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street, Deerfield Beach, Florida. Last CRA meeting, we discussed safety on the beach. I agree with all the commissioners, the mayor, and the entire city. Safety is paramount. No argument there. However, I was wondering if BSO could provide the residents of city of Deerfield Beach with how many crimes were committed on the beach last year or in the last 6 months that were not able to be handled by BSO. I would like to question the city, and if the city would consider looking into a private firm and not Paul Blart, whoever the mall cop guy, for security as opposed to uniformed officers due to the tremendous increase in the hourly rate for officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chauncey Chapman, 191 Northwest 47th Avenue, Deerfield Beach. Mary Ann, I'm sure you'll correct me if I overstep. I came to my first CRA meeting and I was really surprised to see, I think kind of by accident, a really good sampling of the market. You had a 2-to-1 ratio of people going to the beach versus Publix. Publix is a great grocery store. It's a place with good fresh foods and a really, really good pharmacy. And what I saw in the map is that there are people who may be challenged in getting to good facilities using the freebie to get to a great grocery store and a great pharmacy. And then I look at the hours of operation and they are not congruent to people who want to do that. I urge you to change those hours of operation to sort of 10 to 2, maybe 3 or 4 days a week. You're going to tell me how wrong I am.
No, no, I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm just saying that your comments are related to the CRA, less than this board, even though they were the same people. You can continue your message, but it's something good to repeat at the CRA meeting where action can be taken.
I'll see you there. That was really what I wanted to say. So I left here really heartened that freebie could possibly be a great asset to the city to offer to people who are transportation challenged and the local grocery store is a bodega without great vegetables. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Hines at 559 Northwest 47th Terrace. We got an election coming up early next year. I have some questions for the current commissioner of District 4. The United States barely makes the top 30 in education worldwide. Yet the commissioner failed for 11 months to fill a vacancy on the Education Advisory Board, a board that the city needs. The commissioner of District 4 also voted to spend nearly $250,000 on lifeguard stands, over $2,000 for each of dozens of turtle lights, and $1,300 for garbage cans. Yet at a budget workshop sat mute while the commissioners participated at the commission meeting, and he stated he didn't ever want to hear about garbage cans again. On another occasion, the commission spent nearly an hour grilling the Packard Rattler representative about their request for an additional $10,000 needed for transportation expenses. Why no questions for a $300 million budget, yet a 1-hour conversation over $10,000? That's really strange to me. The commission requested the city manager reduce the millage rate by 10%. The manager did not do that, but instead he received a hefty raise and was praised as being the Tom Brady of city managers. Why did the commissioner reward and then praise the manager who did not follow his wishes? Commissioner stated, we don't give out 15-year contracts when the Kiwanis asked for one, yet 3 months later, he voted to award a 20-year contract for a restaurant to replace the Deerfield Beach Cafe. That's kind of interesting too. These questions are important due to the fact that this commissioner is a potential next mayor for the city, and his past behavior leaves me in doubt not only to his will, but his capabilities for serving the city to the satisfaction of all the residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Karen Shelley, 190 Durham D. I wanted to mention the CRA meeting. I know you're different than the CRA, although it's the same board. One of the things in going to the meeting several times, it was mentioned that people don't understand the distinction, and I agree with you. And I went to look back on the meeting on YouTube and I didn't find it. So I don't know if it was just my lack of finding it or if it doesn't appear there, but if it's not posted the same way that the commission meetings are, I would encourage you to do that. I think that will, excuse me, provide more information to people and they can go back and check it. The other thing, I was disappointed at the proposal, and when the more I realized it, I have a question about why we don't have a chamber in this town. I feel that the economic development portion of our city and the CRA, and a lot of the things they do are things that typically would be a chamber activity, and I'm wondering if maybe the role of those positions are unrealistic for what our expectations are. So I know it's not up to you to start a chamber. I don't care what happened to the chamber. Everybody wants to give the backstory when I ask the question, but I just throw it out into the universe that maybe we need to consider getting a chamber for our city again, because I really think the city's been picking up the slack on that, and I don't think that's a fair expectation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Philip Bradley. Excuse my voice. I found a new allergy to cats. My name is Philip Bradley. My address is 4330 Northwest 12th Avenue, Deerfield Beach. And I have either attended, watched video, or read the minutes of the last 12 months of meetings here. So that's my familiarity with this. And I've noticed something, a trend I don't like. I find a little bit disturbing. I'm going to call it bias from the dais. At the November 19th meeting, Mr. McHugh was, I feel, unfairly and unjustly demoted from his position as city manager after just a few weeks on the job. No specific reason was given for this other than some vague comment about directions. Okay. I don't see how you can make a call like that after just a few weeks of performance. Most would argue that a job of this type would have at least a 90-day probationary period. And it's a complicated job, and that's what I feel anyways, but I wanted to say that. Then, at the December 3rd meeting, a zoning change for the Eller building property was voted on after public comment. But the public comment was, I feel, irrelevant, as one of the commissioners stated his position before the first comment was actually made. And another commissioner read a prepared speech affirming his approval, a speech he wrote before this meeting was ever started. So he had already decided before the hearing, before hearing anything from the citizens. And it has been brought to my recent attention that one of you recently dismissed a member of the African American Heritage Advisory Board, who just happens to be on the campaign staff of someone who is running for mayor. That man would be Mr. Dan Hers. Okay. This dais bias should concern all citizens of Deerfield Beach. It concerns me especially since I, Philip Bradley, as a candidate for Commissioner of District 3. So I'm calling for this council to pledge to the citizens of Deerfield Beach that you will not use your official positions to participate in any effort to unduly influence the citizens of Deerfield Beach so that they may fairly elect their representatives, and for you to hold each other accountable for doing so. Thank you.
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. The mayor's misinformation campaign is in high gear. At last commission meeting, he put up a post from 2019 that contained the word Nazi. He did this to try and compare that 2019 post to the elected official from District 3's post comparing Trump to Adolf Hitler. The problem with the mayor's logic is I was not in charge of that Facebook page in 2019. It was run by the mayor's good friend, Pat Jolivet. And why was the mayor bringing up a 2012 post from John Grassi and falsely claimed that Grassi writes for me? Maybe the mayor's point was guilt by association to John Grassi. If we are going there, let's look at some of the mayor's associates. We have one of the mayor's and vice mayor's biggest supporters, both financial and otherwise, convicted felon James Batmazian. How about disgraced city manager Burgess Hanson, who had the full support of the mayor and vice mayor until the day he was forced to resign in disgrace? Or how about Donnie, no, I won't use his last name, but the stories he tells about himself and Billy. I could go on for hours, but I would rather use my remaining time on something more productive. The handout the five of you have in front of you is a dilapidated building at 900 Southeast 8th Avenue in Palm Plaza. People I have spoken to say the building has been in basically the same condition for 15 years and 9 months, which is coincidentally the same amount of time the mayor has been pontificating from the dais. My concern, and what should be your concern, commissioners, is the immediate danger this property poses to the surrounding area, which includes a school only a few short blocks away. Hasn't the city had a director of public safety in place for 3 years? Why has nothing been done to avoid this tragedy just waiting to happen? If I were fortunate enough to become Deerfield Beach next mayor, I know I would mitigate the danger my very first day in office. I also know that I would never have voted like Commissioners Hudak and Drosky did in approving the complete rezoning of the Axis property on Federal Highway, which in just one night destroyed the character and fabric of a neighborhood that was built up over the last 50-plus years. If only our elected officials would learn how to listen to the people that they are supposed to represent, instead of lawyer Dennis Mealy and his carpetbagging clients. And I would like to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, since this is the last commission meeting of the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lucia Del Genio, 707 North Shore Drive. I vote for him in March.
There's no campaigning here. but thank you.
No, I'm just saying who I will vote for, but thank you. I just want to show my disappointment at the yes votes on the Eller Street to change the zoning. I think that's very embarrassing to the city, since we had all the residents here opposing it, and I don't understand why you had to do it, but thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online? Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. I would like to share some information with some of the members that are speaking improperly regarding board members appointed by the members of the DIAs. You cannot appoint someone that doesn't want to volunteer. Every single person that is on every one of the volunteer boards, the EAB, the Cultural Committee, sorry, I had to laugh about that one. Every single board, everybody that is on every single one of those boards is a volunteer that puts in an application and gets appointed by their specific commissioner or mayor, depending on their geographical location of their home. So again, I say, you can't appoint someone that doesn't want to volunteer. But it's hard to want to represent someone that does not truly represent its citizens. If you hear every single person last week at the last commission meeting get up and say, we do not want this, we do not want this, and you vote in favor of it anyhow, there you show that you are not in it for the residents, you're in it for yourself. And that's where therein lies the issue. I mentioned to everyone that's on this call, please stay to the very end of the meeting, as the subject is coming up again regarding the city manager position. And who knows, if you don't stay until after midnight, there's a good chance that Dan Hers might be appointed to that position. So let's all stay there and stay in charge and make sure that we're listening to the very end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Peggy Ross, 103 19th Avenue. I'm not sure that I'm 100% correct on this, but as far as the Eller property, as I understand, the Florida State Live Local would allow that 277 unit building to be built with the commission, the city of Deerfield would have no say in it. So, I don't think anybody's exactly understanding that you could get the 277 unit building anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else? I'm going to close it to the public then. Mr. Freitag, I'm going to take that as a public records request and get you that information. And by the way, great outfit tonight. That's very festive and puts a smile on all of our faces. Anything regarding the CRA, though, some of it is economic development, which certainly applies to us. I encourage you guys to come to the next CRA meetings and kind of keep that fire going and keep bringing those items up on that. Let me see. See if I can get all the questions answered. Thank you for the information regarding the chamber. I believe the current agreement we have with the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, is up in January. Is that correct? So that's something that certainly is timely for us to consider doing because that relationship is up come January. So excellent points regarding that. I've never heard of giving an interim position a 90-day probationary period. That's kind of silly. It's an interim position while we look to fill a permanent position. So I think people really don't seem to understand that. Ms. Freitag has an excellent point. We cannot appoint people who don't come forward to volunteer. This isn't a dictatorship in which we tell people they have to serve on a certain board or not. And it is important for us to have people on the board, though, that if someone's going to lie to us or someone's not going to give us misinformation or present themselves in a way that you don't want them representing you, we don't usually appoint people like that to a board. But for the most part, we are looking for volunteers for boards. So those of you who do volunteer, I appreciate it. As usual, Mr. Hers has his facts wrong. The reference to the Nazi comment that was on the Deerfield Beach Politics page, which he's now very heavily involved with, and even was back then because they supported his campaign. The point was that if you're going to berate a nearly 90-year-old man for his personal comments on his personal Facebook page, I would hope you'd have the guts to actually do it to someone who was supporting your campaign and referencing your campaign, something that I did not see you do at that time. Mr. Batmazian did contribute a dollar amount at one point to one of my campaigns, but considering I've been in office for 16 years, I've accepted one donation from the man in that time. To say he's my biggest campaign donor shows that you don't know what you're talking about. But I will say that also Mr. Batmazian was given a pardon by President Trump. So I don't believe that your comments about him might get you in some legal trouble in referencing him. Mr. Hanson, as a reminder, the city manager, the motion to get rid of Mr. Hanson was made by me. So some of us actually don't have a bias. We make moves based on what the facts are. And no matter who the people are, you should probably try to educate yourself on that. If you're going to make little comments and saying Donnie somebody and not fill it out, complete your sentence. Disparaging remarks without facts seem to be your forte, and I think you need to get your facts straight. As far as that building, city manager, can you comment on that building? This is a really horrible picture. I don't even know what this is, but
I didn't see the picture.
you can't, it doesn't matter. You can't see it anyways, but I believe it's the one in the Palm Plaza.
I think it's 900 Southeast 8th
Yes.
Avenue. Yeah. So that has been a problem for many, many years. Last year, a company came forward and purchased that. They paid over $1 million for it. And they gave the city some plans and a proposal for which they were going to do quite a bit of work on that and have a brand new product there. That was an agreement that should have expired. Just let me look at Eric to make sure on 12/16. Does that sound right? So yesterday. So their agreement actually came up yesterday, and so there's all of the legal stuff that we would have to take care of and make a determination of how we'll move on the property if they have not made the substantial compliance with what they agreed to in the original agreement. So yeah, that was purchased in 2023. So that's why what happened before 2023, I'm not sure, but it does have substantial fines also pending on it.
As far as the safety of the building, is it secured? Is that what they're supposed to be doing?
It was just
secure it?
secured again on Friday.
Mhm.
Deputies were out there, and they're out there routinely to secure it. If anybody damages it, they check it, as well as code compliance.
Okay. And this is the first meeting that I've had anybody come forward on that meeting, on that actual item, but I know that's something we've been looking at for a long time.
Yeah, and it's the company that purchased it entered, like I said, into an agreement with the city that they would have a certain amount of time to get their permits in, get their permits approved, and all of their work started. So, but that the end of that time frame ended just yesterday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. There seems to be some confusion that just because a lot of people show up means everybody should vote on what the people want us to do happen to show up. There's a lot more to a lot of these decisions that we make. I'm not going to get into the other colleagues' decisions on why they voted the way they vote on these items. But just because a lot of people show up doesn't mean you should just listen to whoever shows up. You do your homework, you know the facts, you make your decisions based on that. And you based it also on all the people that are out there in the public that you speak to outside of just the people who show up for a meeting, which is part of the reason we sometimes run ourselves in problems in government is that everybody votes the way the wind blows, depending on who's in the room at that time. It's not the way to go about your business, and I don't recommend that. But I will give a reminder for all of you who are out there, and I know everybody wants to comment on the last meeting, but just a reminder for all of you candidates out there, including the ones that sit up here in the dais, there is no campaigning on city property. So going up to Dennis Mealy immediately after that vote, right outside these sliding glass doors, the way Mr. Hers did, and asked if he would, in soliciting him for a campaign donation on city property, is not allowed. So please do not do that again unless you want to have a violation. But Mr. Mealy, I understood that and declined. But please don't do that in the future. And if you shout out again, we'll have you removed. Okay? Thank you. I think I answered all the questions that came up. Yes, as far as Live Local, part of the reason that Live Local is in effect is because they're trying to make up for what they did to the Sadowski Fund all these years. So that's why we have these things that are a challenge for all of us to deal with. So, but it's certainly more nuanced than just saying that there was a Live Local Act. There's certainly more nuance to saying, well, there's a lot of people here, so you should have voted against it. I think that covers everything. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. Okay. Thank you.
We are now at the consent portion of tonight's agenda. Items 6 through 15 are currently on consent.
Are there any pulls from the commission? No. No. 6 through 15. Is there anyone from the public that would care out to comment on any items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15? Raise hands. We have one. Anyone online? Okay. Open it to the public. Just come up and state which item you're addressing.
Item number 9, Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. Regarding this community participation grant to Deerfield Beach Little League for $18,000, I was hoping that it could have been for more money. I'd like to know how you decided on, arrived on this figure of $18,000, and I wholeheartedly support whatever can be given to Little League. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Roger Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street, Deerfield Beach. With regards to number 9, I don't think it's a good idea that the city give any money to any Little League or any football program, as it's already been proven in the past that does not work. And if we do give this money to the Deerfield Beach Little League, are we going to have to check, do background checks on all the people who are involved in the coaching and this, that, and the other thing, and then find out that, oh, maybe that was the wrong organization to give the money to? There are other organizations that could use this money. And as far as I'm concerned, growing up being an athlete and playing all sports, it was usually the onus on the child who was playing, their parents, do car washes, sell chocolate bars, clean windows, help people pick up and clean up their yard, find a different way for these young people to earn the money themselves. Be a lot easier. They would learn a good life skill and a good life lesson, and it's not just being another handout. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public. Can we get some clarity on the request from Little League?
Yeah, the information is in the backup, but I'll have Mr. Warren, Greg, come up and also explain the process to you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the commission, Greg Warner, Director of Parks and Recreation. The $18,000 amount is the way it's been the last 2 years. So this isn't an extension to the existing agreement. So all the terms remain the same this year for that $18,000. If Little League comes back to us next year when we have to do a new agreement, then we can consider a higher amount.
This
Right.
is what they've requested?
This is what they requested 2 years ago when we had the original agreement. This is one of the last 1-year extension to the
This is what
existing.
they said that they needed from us?
Correct.
Okay.
correct. And they've been very successful with the highest number of children they've had this past spring at 220 kids. And their organization runs very well, very well.
Background checks, obviously, for all of our youth leagues, any
Correct. Whether it's
volunteering.
football, baseball, or basketball, all coaches are background checked.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Commission?
Motion to approve items 6 through 15.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Commissioner Preston. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Item number 16 is a discussion regarding the code amnesty and neighborhood improvement programs.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission, and residents. You want to start with that one? Thank you. Tonight, I'm just going to present to you a recap of the Neighborhood Improvement Program. This was actually approved by the commission some time ago, and we are reactivating it. There is a certain need for that in many parts of our city, and this will help some of our residents to get their homes into compliance and also to improve and beautify and make safe some of our neighborhoods. As I said, it was approved by ordinance in 2020. The funding for this program actually comes from the Target Area Trust Fund. The Target Area Trust Fund was approved by the commission by ordinance in 1999. The important thing to remember is it doesn't use tax dollars at all. It's funded entirely from a portion of the fines that are collected from code compliance. And the funds can be used in part, the way the ordinance is written, to aid in redevelopment and also improve the quality of life. And in 2020, the commission also decided that these funds could be used to support the neighborhood improvement program. The commission made this a function of the city manager's office. I think there was probably a designated need at the time of 2020. And since that time, it really has not been active. So our plan is to reactivate it beginning in January. The conditions and qualifications, just as a recap again from what you decided in 2020, is that the person must be cited for a code violation, so they must receive the notice of violation. The funds are intended for relatively minor violations, but to bring the home into minimum housing standards. This isn't to build additions or to accessorize or anything like that. It's to bring it up to minimum housing standards. There has to be a demonstration of financial or physical hardship or need on the part of the applicant. The applicant has to be the legal owner. The property has to be homesteaded, and it must be the applicant's primary residence. So they can have it homesteaded, but if they live somewhere else, say in an ALF or some other location, this does not apply. And they have to comply with the remaining provisions of the code policies that we have for the city. So I'm just recapping that so that when you start to see that, and we're going to do an educational campaign starting in January so that our residents have the opportunity to use some of these funds when they are necessary and when it's applicable to residents. So before I go to the next topic, are there any questions on that one?
No.
Okay. The second item is the Code Amnesty Program. This program has been brought before you a couple of different times, and based on the feedback that has come from the commission, both collectively and individually, as well as staff looking over some of the more critical criteria. This is what this presentation is our best effort to present to you what could be a viable code amnesty program. Many of you know we have over $100 million in outstanding uncollected code fines. This would make a significant dent in that, I believe. And we'll go through what the purpose is here now. It's really to improve the neighborhoods and the homes by offering an incentive for our residents and our businesses to comply. All of the participating properties have to be in compliance with codes if they're going to take part in the amnesty program. You have to have your residents or your business in compliance. This will reduce the attractiveness for criminal activity. We know how that is. An abandoned house or something that's not being utilized as a haven for criminal activity and all sorts of things that then the sheriff's office ends up being tied up with. And it also empowers residents with their property and instills community pride. Another part of this, which is important and people don't think about this, but it's to give clear title to residents and businesses. Because if you want to sell your property at some point and we have a lien on it from the city, you can't. That lien has to be fulfilled. Some of those liens, as you know, are substantial. You could also improve your property with a loan. The loan could be used for building that addition or replacing your roof or whatever else you might need to do, or obtaining a mortgage or loan for whatever purposes you might need, and also to bequeath it to loved ones. That's another part where people don't think about that, but when you pass on and you have a lot of liens on a property, even though it was homesteaded while you were there, the homestead leaves that property. The program is also designed to reduce taxpayer costs because right now we have to inspect these homes regularly. Every time there's an inspection, the city's paying about $125. Abatement services also have to be paid when they're needed. Sometimes we come before this board and ask for you to assess those onto the tax liens. But many of those abatement services do not come before the board, but yet the city is paying for those, cutting grass, boarding up the building like we had to do this last week at the 8th Avenue property we just mentioned. There's also costs associated with magistrate and court hearings because we have to keep presenting these cases to the magistrate for them to assess it as a problem property or to put the liens on the property. And those costs also, court filings to place those liens and the tax filings and abatements. All of that costs money. All of that costs the taxpayers of the whole city. And of course, an incidental part of it, it's not a primary function, but to reduce the amount of unpaid fines and liens on the properties. Those unpaid liens and fines do not impact us in a credit way or anything of that nature, but they are outstanding and uncollected. There are basically 4 types of properties that I wanted to go over so that you can see where the logic is in the amnesty program. The first one is residential property that is homesteaded, homestead exemption and residential property. That means that the Broward County Appraiser's Office has it listed as a homesteaded property. We would recommend, if you're looking to move forward with this program, to use a date, perhaps November of 2024, our current year. The application for the program would have to be made by the legal owner or the co-owner of the property. Type 2 properties are residential properties without homestead exemption. Those can be single family or multi-unit, but there isn't a homestead that's recorded at the BCPA. This might be a second home. It might be just an additional home that a person or a family owns, but it could also be a long-term or short-term rental properties. That would be the type 2. The type 3 are non-residential properties. That's everything else that you mostly will think of. That's commercial, industrial, business, vacant land, undeveloped properties, that sort of thing. And then the last one, which does not qualify for the program, is type 4. Those are any properties that we are currently in litigation over, or that are in bankruptcy, foreclosure, if they have auctions pending, or if there are, like I said, lawsuits with the city. The applicant or the property owner, also, if they have other properties in the city that are not brought up to code, they would also not be able to participate in the program. In other words, if you own 5 properties in the city and all 5 of them have code liens on them, you have to bring all 5 into compliance to participate in the program. I'm going to give just an example of each. The numbers that you see are numbers that have worked out over a long period of time of seeing what really benefits residents and businesses when they come to code mitigation hearings. And this is a much more generous offering than what they would receive if they were to come before the magistrate as a general principle. On the residential properties with the homestead exemption, we use what's called an adjusted market value. It's basically taking the just market value that you see on the property appraiser's website and reducing that by $100,000. What that does is that gives the first $100,000 of the property basically that is free and clear to the property owner in the calculation of what the fine could possibly be. That allows for any properties that have a lower property value in our city, say it's worth $130,000 or $200,000 or $115,000. The program only looks at the value of that property after the first $100,000. And that's on homesteaded property. We've done a lot of calculations on what our cost recovery is just in the legal fees, just in the filing fees, the cost for magistrate, the cost for legal representation. That actually runs at $2,500, but for homesteaded properties, we would set a minimum cost recovery at $1,500. So in other words, if you have a $15,000 lien on your property, the minimum that we would go to is $1,500 on that $15,000. Okay,
And that is to make us whole.
that's to make us whole on what we've already put into it.
Okay.
And it's not quite making us whole because we probably put a lot more. On average, it's about $2,500 just in our legal fees and fees for magistrate. But the actual calculation is 4% of that adjusted market value or an 87.5% reduction in the current liens or fines, whichever of those is less. So I'm going to give you an example. If you had a single family home that the property appraiser says is $260,000, and it's not uncommon to see something like a $67,000 fine, this makes it impossible for the owner of that property to do virtually anything. Those fines are 26% of the home's value. You're stuck. If you did the calculation at 4% of the adjusted market value, that would come to $6,400. And if you reduce the $67,000 by 87.5%, it comes to $8,375. We take the lesser of the amounts. So the amnesty amount would be $6,400 instead of $67,000. It's a 90%, little over 90% reduction in fines, and reduces it to just 2.5% of the home's value. Instead, where it was sitting before was 26% of the home's value. The type 2 residential properties are those without homestead exemption. They're residential properties, but they are not homesteaded. They may be rental properties, they may be secondary homes, what have you. The minimum cost recovery, because they are residents, we still did not go to the full $2,500, but we did a 30% reduction on the admin cost to $1,750. That would be the minimum, the absolute minimum. But in this case, because it is not homesteaded, it would be 7% of the just market value or an 85% reduction in the liens. And for the example of that, I used the same base home with the same fines, just so it's easier to compare. And you see that 7% of that is $18,000. An 85% reduction of the fines would be $10,050. So the amnesty amount would be the lower of those, the less of those two. So it would be $10,050 instead of $67,000. So that's an 85% reduction in the fines or 4% of the value of the home. So we've gone from 26% of the value of the home to 4%, and that makes it a lot better for anyone with that substantial fine to be able to do things with their home. The type 3 property is the non-residential property. These are, again, the commercial, industrial, business, vacant land, undeveloped, and those sorts. This, we have the full amount that we have estimated in our cost recovery of $2,500. And then the adjustments would be 10% of the just market value or a 70% reduction in the fines and liens. I did use different numbers because usually commercial properties are a little bit more expensive. So in this example, I have $560,000 of the value of the property with $95,000 in fines. That's 17% of the value of the property. But you can see if we do the 10% reduction, it's not so good. If we do the 70% reduction rather, that's $28,500, which that would be the one on a commercial property instead of $95,000. So it's a 70% reduction of the fines, bringing it down to just 5% of the property's value. So this slide just summarizes those three types once again, so that we have a place to talk about them. And then any property of the particular type that's lower than the cost recovery amount we would do a $250 dismissal fee. We still have to pay to release the lien. We still have to pay for that through the court. And we do have some admin costs, but in the interest of, on some of the homes that have significantly lower liens, we feel that the benefit of getting compliance in the community and bringing the homes up to standard far outweighs any of the difference that might be picked up in the lien or fine cost. So anybody who's, say that you have a homesteaded property and you have $1,200 in liens, if your property is in compliance, we would have code inspected, of course. If it's in compliance, we will dismiss and release the liens for $250 instead of the $1,200. Any questions on that?
Commissioner Hudak.
I think this is a great program. Again, the reason for code compliance is not to fine our residents and to make it so that their titles are not clear. It's to get them to get their homes into compliance. So I think this is a great opportunity. Do we have a time frame on when we would give individuals in order to take advantage of this program?
The recommendation would be 6 months. We've looked at the codes that several other cities in our area have proposed. Many of them did this around the COVID time because there were a lot of people who were suffering and were unable to maintain their properties. Our city did not at that time, but most of them have been 6 months. So if this commission were amenable to moving forward, we could even look at something like a February to August timeframe.
I just, I know there are certain individuals who want to harp on the outstanding amount that we have for these fines. And it is tremendous, but the whole idea really is to get these buildings like that Palm Plaza building that I've wanted destroyed for 4 years now, to get them in compliance. And I think this is a great way to try the people who actually want to get their properties, who have already done what they need to do, and want to be able to move forward and get this, over and done with. I think this is a great idea. I really do. Those who do not care and, will never get their homes in compliance, whether this amnesty program is there or not. So for those individuals who really want to get their homes in compliance, I think this is a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and time would be of the essence because, as I mentioned at the outset, this is significantly lower than what a magistrate would award.
Vice Mayor Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to first piggyback off Commissioner, pardon me, Hudak's comments that this is code compliance, pardon me, and not enforcement. And there's a reason why we use the semantics and not code enforcement, and code compliance is to encourage compliance with our code. This is not a money grab by the city. This is to get homes and properties in compliance with the code. So anything that we can do to encourage that compliance, I think, is a step in the right direction. I do have two questions regarding the program, though. The first one is, you mentioned the mitigation, which is currently available. Anyone can come in now and request mitigation of their lien. I believe they have to be in compliance with the code.
Correct.
As well. Other than the more generous discount, if you will, and the amount of the fine that you would get in the amnesty program, is there any difference than the current mitigation program?
There are a couple of different things. One is we have resources now coming on board. The commission approved an internal code manager for this fiscal year, which gives us an additional code inspector, which this will be one of the things that they are strictly dedicated to. So it will speed this process. They can laser focus on anybody who's trying to get through this program. The other part of it is this will be a very fast process for mitigations. There is an extended and a protracted process that's involved in that. And there are other legal matters that sometimes come up and have to be resolved. This is strictly about bringing the home up to compliance and then reducing the fees accordingly. Furthermore, although mitigation is available, mitigation is not going to be at that $250 range. That's unheard of for mitigation. But again, we look at this as I think most of you do. This is about bringing the neighborhood's value up, bringing the folks into compliance. That's why I started off with bringing forward and reiterating the neighborhood improvement program, because we do have some people that no matter what we do, they may not have the means. And maybe there's something medical, maybe there's something physical, maybe there's economic issues that they're just not able to. We had one that was replacing 3 numbers on the front of the house. You know, and that fine just kept going on and on and on. We certainly would have the ability to just take care of that with the neighborhood improvement program. So that's why I've started off with that, because it's the combination of these that will allow us to leverage what we've already collected to help the residents who are still coming along.
Okay. And the second question is, how are we going to market this to the property owners to take advantage of the program? It's great to have the program, but if nobody knows about it or takes advantage of it, then it's not worth it. What are we going to do to promote?
Well, the good thing is we know all of their addresses. And they will all be receiving letters with a specific point of contact that of the person who will be running this program. And so the other part of that that's important to understand is that this program is not going to negatively impact our other code operations. So the other stuff that we're doing in code will resume or, you know, continue as normal. This allows for that one targeted person to really handle the bulk of what needs to be done with this program.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question is this. Let's assume that the commission says, no, let the fines continue to mount. If that becomes a part of the Deus rationale, what can happen in the end? In other words, if they keep mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting, do the city have the ability to take away somebody's house?
So the city does not take away homesteaded properties. That's pretty much plain and simple. The only time that a homesteaded property would ever even be of a concern is if it's an unsafe structure, like it's just not habitable, then there's something has to be done. If there are the major life safety issues that, you know, you have to take care of the people who are in that home. But on the other properties, you know, I don't want to deal with people's property. I don't think anyone on the commission wants to deal with anybody's property. The idea is to get the compliance. That's the first and highest priority. Can the city foreclose? Absolutely. It's a legal option that we have whenever there is any business or non-homesteaded property that just is obstinate and refuses to do anything about that property. And that has to happen for a variety of reasons, but the primary one, once again, is if nobody's going to take care of that property, then the city's going to have to. We come to you every year in the summer to say, hey, we have some properties that we need to levy this on their taxes, on the tax roll. And that's for some of those homes that we have that they're persistently obstinate, and thousands of taxpayer dollars are being spent to fix someone's pool, to mow someone's grass, to cut their trees, to board up their property. And that's unacceptable.
You know, I think there ought to be, you know, along with the way that code do things, there ought to be a couple things. One is compassion to the people who they're dealing with and understanding their circumstances. The other is a rationale. In other words, if you tell a person that you need to take care of this, there ought to be a rationale behind it. But if you tell, like has happened with some people, you need to replace this grass, and they go and replace the grass because they want cold off their back. It's the middle of the summer, it's 9 degrees, they have no irrigation system, and the grass dies, and now they're right back at the same point. What they should have done, what I think would be the rationale, is to say, we need to take care of this problem. First step, maybe a 3-step process. First step, let's put in an irrigation system. But people get so afraid and so intimidated, in which case I know of a couple of cases like that. They replaced the whole lawn, but it died again. Only because there was no irrigation, proper irrigation anyway. Or parts of it was really brown and just died out. It didn't end up like they wanted it to be. So, you know, there need to be some rationale behind whatever the violation is. To actually, if you want it to go away, let's provide steps. Let's have an understanding of really what you're dealing with, and then provide for the people some insight as to how they are to handle that problem.
Well, I agree. And in the case you just kind of described, I mean, no one's going to, everything's going to be defeated by that purpose. You're going to end up with dead grass in 3 months or whatever. So there is no benefit to that. I do think that in some of the cases, the fact that with the neighborhood improvement program, the city does have to scrutinize what is that money is being used for. And yeah, it's supposed to be for the smaller, projects. Sometimes we had a case where we had a woman who had a medical event and her door had to be ripped off, and it's very expensive to replace an exterior door, as it turns out. She did not have the means for that. So that's an application of this. And I think that the fact that the city's going to have to be, when I say the city, the code compliance portion of it that's dedicated to this program, they have to be more invested in what the residents are saying. Otherwise, it isn't going to work.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple things. So, and you're not looking for action on this because this is a discussion. I'm going to imagine this will be brought forward to us as something that we would have for us to vote on.
Correct.
Okay. What do we do with people who choose not to? So this is really a clearing of the books, trying to get things in order, give an opportunity for people to kind of clean this up, all these long lingering problems that we have out there.
Correct.
What is the time frame to allow this to happen? You said 6 months.
6 months.
So
yeah.
they've got a 6-month window to participate.
Correct.
What do we do when they don't participate?
Then the city will have a much shorter list that we can be more attentive to, and to pay more attention to the ones that remain. There are some, just as an example, there are some residents, I believe, that don't even know that they have an outstanding fine. As an example, if you came here and you were working on your house, you're getting it fixed up. So the code person was here, but there was a violation. What happens is when you finally come here, and whether it's 30 days, 90 days, 150 days, and the code compliance officer says, yes, Mr. Gantz was working all along. He did the right thing. Yes, there was a violation 4 months ago, but he corrected it. The magistrate's going to dismiss it at the recommendation of the code compliance officer. However, by our code, he's also going to assess an $80 admin fee. And most people, when they leave, I believe that many of them forget that they have an $80 admin fee. All they're hearing is the case is dismissed. I don't have to worry about the fine. So one of the things of the program, it's not here because it's not for people who need to get into compliance. They're already in compliance, but they're not knowing about that. So part of that mass mailing notification is to say, hey, don't forget you have this, because I think a lot of people don't have it. And why do I say that? Because someone will go to sell their condo and the mortgage company goes, no, you owe the city of Deerfield Beach $80. We can't sell your condo. Those kinds of conversations come up. So there are those, but the list will be a lot shorter, and it will also allow the city to focus a little bit more, the resources on where more of the troubled areas are. We know some of the troubled areas because fortunately residents complain and they make code complaints. We need those. We want those to be on the record. But that helps us to keep track of some of the more prolific violators. But to have the list narrowed down, that we're not looking at more than $100 million in violations, we're looking at, say, 50, 40, 70, whatever it might be, allows us to focus our resources better.
Okay. So as some of my colleagues brought up, I mean, this is not, code enforcement is what it is. It's not code punishment. I know people will be frustrated by the fact that it's not fair. These people have had their house for a decade looking like hell and the fines run up. We can't do anything about it because they're homesteaded, and it's just not fair. I get that, but it is code compliance, not code punishment. I am interested in us being able to recoup our fees. You mentioned some of the mitigations that we do about unsafe areas like pools and, abandoned pools and stuff like that. Our abandoned property ordinance covers that. If we step in and have to do that on a property, even if it's not abandoned, I believe if the person is there, We do that, that gets added to their tax bill and we recoup all of our costs on that already.
Correct.
Okay, so this is more about the code fines in our administrative costs that we do to be able to keep those things going for us to try to recoup.
Correct.
So going back to what do we do when the people don't choose not to participate? Because this is pretty generous and this is a good way to kind of clear the slate and get things moving along. Because you do have some very odd things out there. I've been here long enough to remember, and some of these might know what I'm talking about. Mike, when we had everything on microfiche and we moved things over and got things computerized. By the way, microfiche is not something you use for bait. It's actually a little thing to actually take things off film and put it in the computer. We had people getting code violations where you have an outstanding permit from 1979 in Deer Creek for a gas line and they've never had gas there their entire existence there. So they don't know where these things are coming from. That's a way to kind of clean up some of this old stuff that's out there. That's what we're looking to do. But maybe the city attorney might be better to answer this. So let's say it's these non-homesteaded properties. You've got commercial properties that have issues. You have, and we could take one at a time to maybe discuss this. You have the commercial properties, then you have the ones that are non-homesteaded that are actually residential. You might have a carpetbagger from another city that comes in and owns 5 places and they're using it as investment properties and they're not maintaining it, but they're not homesteading because it's in a trust or something like that. Are we able to go after those and take those as a city? So in other words, what's preventing us from going into a commercial property that's been abandoned for years? It's falling apart. We look at where the old Co Brewery was at and we look what was there for the longest time. What prevents the city from going, and not that I'm saying cities should be going in and taking things from the public, and when you don't want it off your tax rolls. So I'm just curious to know, if people ask, why aren't we just going ahead and doing that?
Sure. So when there's a code fine and there's a violation and they fail to correct within the time period that the special magistrate orders them to do, we come back to the special magistrate and ultimately we get an order and an imposition of lien. And so we file a lien against the property, putting everybody on notice that the city has a claim on that property. Now, with homesteaded property has been discussed, that's challenging because there's constitutional protection for being able to foreclose on homesteaded property. For non-homesteaded property, though, foreclosure is an option. We do want to look at what those fine amounts are. You generally wouldn't want to move forward with the foreclosure if the fine amounts are not significant and they could just simply pay that, whatever that, let's say, call it relatively small amount is, and then, that lien goes away. So we do look at that. We also look at what other liens may be on the property. Do they have a first money mortgage? In other words, did they get a mortgage from a bank that was used to purchase the property? Because under Florida law, if they did, that mortgage company generally will have priority over the city's code enforcement lien in a foreclosure process. So sometimes you may see a property, it's dilapidated, it's abandoned, and you may ask, what the heck is the city doing here? And it may be that the mortgage company is already in a foreclosure against that individual, and we're waiting for that process to play out to see where that shakes out. There are occasions, and we have done it before, where we have foreclosed on property.
I'm thinking of the one on 10th Street.
Understood, yeah. And sometimes when we move forward a foreclosure, it moves the property owner to either pay, or it also may get a bank involved that may be on the financing, who may call them and or send them a threatening letter and get them to pay. So that is an option, but I think it really is sort of a case-by-case analysis because, it does cost money, a filing fee, you have to pay legal fees to file a foreclosure, et cetera. And, on a case-by-case basis, when we're asked, we do an analysis and we work with staff to decide whether or not it's appropriate. And we look at things like that bank, and how that's going to play out in a foreclosure process.
So basically we look at what our cost averages is, what we could gain by doing it. What the impact is. It's something that we've done, but it's usually more of a last resort.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, foreclosure is generally a last resort.
And I think the key is for the public to know it's not a simple black and white issue. You can't just say, hey, it's this, just take their house. Okay, well, as it's just been explained by the city attorney, and I'm sure we'll have some armchair attorneys will try to argue it, but you're going to understand that it's a lot more complex than just a simple black and white, take it, don't take it type of situation.
What I can tell you, Mayor, though, is every foreclosure that comes that happens in the city or any of bankruptcies and all that, we are notified of. My office reviews them, legal reviews them. We look at every single one of those that happens in the city when those are not initiated by us, for example.
Okay. I think we also might want to look at a case by case basis. But if we have this 6-month window for people to fall into it, you might have some people that are on the cusp, so to speak. Just getting those, whatever. I don't want this to be a one-time only thing. That maybe we look at that we take it by a case situation, that we might be able to offer that in extreme extenuating circumstances. I don't want it to be as cut and dry as you had 6 months, that's it.
And we have, and there have been some cases that have extreme extenuating circumstances that the magistrates have also heard, and the city makes its recommendations to the magistrate in those kinds of cases. I think we've got very good magistrates. They have done phenomenal work for us. And they do take into consideration all of the mitigating issues that might be in play.
Thank you. I will say this, and I'm going to encourage the residents to know this. I used to serve on the code enforcement board back, Vice Mayor Drosky, even before he was on there 20 years ago. And I've always hated code enforcement not because of the job they did, it's the job they didn't do. I've never been happy with it. When it was BSO, I wasn't happy with it. I'm not real thrilled with the current, even though I think it's gotten better. I've never been satisfied with it because I don't feel it does enough. And when it does something, sometimes it's too heavy-handed in situations like Commissioner Preston has brought up, where it gets a little ridiculous. Common sense is rarely applied. And the biggest thing is they can't be everywhere. I wish they would. It's frustrating because I see it all the time. If I had $1 for every snipe sign I've called in, we would all be on a vacation right now. But, they can't be everywhere. So I need all residents to be the eyes and ears. Some street on your block that's a dead end street that you might not normally get traffic down, that you've got a problem neighbor that's there. I need you to let us know. If you don't want to call it into them, call me. I'll call it in for you. You're required now by law that you can't make anonymous code complaints, correct?
Correct. We cannot investigate an anonymous complaint.
Okay. But if I call it in, that's no longer anonymous. Right. So I need you all to be the eyes and ears out there to help us be able to police that. Some of you might think, well, we pay money to do that. Yeah, we do. But you know what? The bottom line is this is our neighborhood. This is our city. And we all need to be engaged with it. So when you see those things, say something. Don't sit on it and wait to a commission meeting to run your mouths. Please let us know right away so we can address it, because otherwise you're just doing it to grandstand as opposed to doing it to solve the problem. So I encourage everybody to do that. And I'm giving you an easy way to do that. So thank you for the information. Appreciate it.
Sure. I had one last minute thing, if I could, one last thing. It came up at the last CRA meeting. This was a last minute financial opportunity that was made known to the CRA. And it was discussed at that meeting last week. For our Marine Science Center that's in the CRA, there's an opportunity for a $500,000 funding through a grant to help us with some of our capital costs that are over there, particularly on the interior build out. This money is becoming available from the Broward County Cultural Division Cultural and Artistic Facilities Capital Support. We would like to submit a letter that indicates the support of this commission for us to make that application. There was, this is timely because it's due by the 20th, but as I said, we found out just before the last CRA meeting. So it was mentioned momentarily there, but the application actually has to come from the city itself. So it has to be on behalf of this commission. So I'm looking for a motion from you if you wish to have me write a letter to them in support of that on your behalf.
Do you need a motion, or can you just give the general direction on it?
I think a motion is good because you're getting authorization to submit an
Authorization.
application for a grant, correct?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion, and a second, since it's an actionable item. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item? No. Okay. Close it to the public. Let's roll call.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 17 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the amended building permit fee schedule as set forth in the attached Exhibit A to address the use of private providers, provide for a zoning review fee, and make additional adjustments based on changes in law, providing for conflicts and an effective date.
No. No, it's a discussion item. It's not something we're voting on. It will come back before us and you'll have the opportunity on both readings to be able to speak.
All right. Good evening, Eric Power, Director of Planning and Development Services. Tonight, I have an item before you, which is a discussion to amendments to the building fee schedule. Essentially, what is the buildings fees? Obviously, it is a fees that we charge for review of the Florida Building Code. So that's our structural, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical permits. There are other fees that are charged for building permits. There's a fire fee, there could be an engineering fee, but essentially the building fee schedule we're talking about today are fees that go specifically to the building fund. Last updated in 2021, and I'm going to discuss 4 particular changes in detail tonight. So the first one is related to private provider. The first 2 items are necessities, mandatory changes we have to do because of changes that were done to state statutes that came into effect on October 1st. The first one is related to what is a private provider and how it can be utilized. So private providers are not evil, they're not wrong. They are necessary in a lot of things that occur in the Florida Building Code, especially when it comes to detailed and specific developments such as airports and seaports, buildings that are 100 stories tall, the types of accreditations and approvals that say your average building inspector would not have, right? So you get a private provider to ensure that work has been done. However, the state has sort of changed what private providers are and what they can be, and they're allowing now really any type of development to incorporate and include a private provider, which is now someone other than the city who would review the plans for a project and do inspections. So this is something that is going to be utilized in areas in Central and Western Florida where swaths of development are in the process of being built, and your Lennars and your D.R. Hortons and your Ryans of the world who are trying to build as fast as they possibly can are sidestepping the municipalities they're building in and using private providers to not only do plan review, but also inspections. Right now, we don't have a fee in place for private provider because the city of Deerfield Beach does not typically see or utilize private providers, being a suburban city. There are cities in South Florida that do it for their own reasons, but we feel that now we must put in our code a private provider fee, and we expect that every single city and county in the state of Florida will be doing the same thing over the course of this next year to account for the work. Now, a city is not completely exempt from what happens during the private provider fee. It's the city's responsibility to ensure that the private provider is licensed, insured, that they meet the criteria in which they say they're going to be, that we document those plans, and we keep those plans in perpetuity for public records requests, for changes to building permits in the future. You're building a home and then 20 years later you do something else to it. We need those records. So it is appropriate to charge a fee from the city for using the private provider. So we did evaluate other municipalities locally which have those fees. And I'll show you that on the next slide. Excuse me. But essentially what we're requesting is a reduction of the fee permit, which would be a 25% reduction of the permit fee for plan review and inspection, or a 15% reduction of the permit fee if it was just inspection only. In reference to some of the other cities just mentioned, Coral Springs, Fort Lauderdale, Hallandale Beach, Pompano Beach, Sunrise, all have a private provider fee. Many of the cities I just showed you all are cities that have high rises, so therefore that's the reason for why they have them. So again, not a lot of cities have the private provider fee in Broward County. In review of the projected proposed costs that we mentioned, we feel that we're in line with these other municipalities. I'd like to break this up tonight with the 4 items. So is there any particular questions for private provider?
Commissioner Hudak.
What kind of projects within our city would require a private provider?
Really nothing. There wouldn't really be any requirements in our city that would require a private provider because of, our building heights. We don't have airports, we don't have seaports, we don't have other types of facilities like that. So we don't expect a private provider to come into the city to utilize this, but we feel that it's important that we have this fee in place. Okay, thank you. The next mandatory change is the notice of commencement. So a notice of commencement was recently, the minimum fee was just recently amended by the state from $3,000 to $5,000. Notice of commencement is a legal document. You're required to obtain it if you're getting any type of construction or building work that is what was more than $3,000 now is more than $5,000. This is a legal document. It's very important. It basically ensures your liability to the contractor. You get a roof permit and I climb up on your roof and I fall down, your homeowner's insurance may be liable. But if I notice commencement's in place, that roofer's insurance is what's liable. So the notice of commencement is an important aspect of any type of permit. And it's required, again, for anything above that fee. When the city did its fee schedule change several years ago and went to the percentage rate, we based our minimum fee off of the commencement value. So the fee schedule was conceived at 2.5% of $3,000, which is where our minimum fee of $75 comes into play. So 2.5% of a $3,000 project, again, $75, which is the base for minimum fee. If we were to change that, our minimum fee change would go to $125. I am not proposing that change tonight. That requires a much further evaluation of our code and aspects of other parts of the state statute. Next year, our contract with CGA is up for negotiation. So there's many other items that I believe we should move forward later on next year to discuss changing that minimum fee schedule. I'll bring up one item in a moment, but it is important that we actually just change our building fee schedule, which I'll show you in a second, just to say it's from the 3,000 to the 5,000. What we are requesting is one item, and I'll bring in this in more detail, but we have a line item in our code that it really is unique to us, and it's part of our resiliency requests for improvements for single-family homes, which is that resiliency for high-velocity installations for single-family homes for windows, doors, and roofs. We charge 1.5% for that, which was still a minimum fee of $75. We are asking that request to be moved today. I'll explain a little bit more, but if we did such a request where this one particular item moved from a minimum fee of $75 to $125, we don't expect an increase in revenue of more than $20,000 annually. It's a very minor change. Oops, sorry. So what I have in front of you tonight is the FY24, so just last year's total permit fees of these two items. So for roof and re-roof for single-family homes, there was actually 730 permits that collected a total of $274,000 in total permit fees. If you average that cost among all of those permits, it's about $376 per permit. Window and door replacement, which are treated the same because they're entries. There was 1,287 windows and doors. That was a value of $350,000. The average the average window cost per permit was $277. So we looked at the total number of permits with a minimum fee charged. So for roof, out of 730, only 20 of those permits were the minimum fee. So it's about 2%. And for window and door, of those 1,200, about 285 were the minimum fee, which is about 22%. So you can see that the additional revenue, if we had done this last year, would have only been just above $15,000. So it is not a dramatic increase to the code. What it is that the amount of inspections that go forward for these types of permits, for window and door inspections, a minimum of 2 inspections for a roof permit, could be up to 10 inspections, depending on the type of roof work that's being done. So the fact that an inspector literally goes out to a property, gets in the car, drives the car, spends time on a roof doing 10 inspections for a minimum fee of $75 is something that we need to reevaluate into next year's contract. But at this time, we're just asking for this one increase of $50. Is there any particular questions related to this item? Thank you. All right, moving on. So in the evaluation of the two items I just mentioned that were from state statute, the private provider notice of commencement, in evaluating fees that other cities in Broward County charge, we noticed that many cities charge a review fee for zoning. And it's something that I'd like to discuss tonight as an item for your consideration. Essentially, that we are proposing a two-tiered fee schedule, which we based on review time. Essentially, the items would be general fund fees. So the planning department reviews building permits for compliance. We review windows, doors, additions, new commercial construction. We review essentially 2,000 permits a year, and then, of course, resubmittals of those permits. Those permits, those people who are reviewing those permits, they get paid under the general fund, right, to review a building fee, a building permit. So essentially that general fund time is being captured under the building fund and is not being charged. So we believe that the other cities are charging correctly to utilize general fund dollars for building fund review, and we think we should do the same. Again, this would only go to the general fund. It would not be shared through the building fund or with CGA. And the new fee, we think, would generate approximately $150,000 a year to the general fund. And essentially would be in two tiers. So there would be a $50 fee and a $100 fee, essentially a short review time and a large review time. If the item was a single-family homeowner's fence, roof, small item like a sign permit, things like that, it's based on time, essentially less than a half hour. We would charge $50. If it was a larger permit, new construction, new development that was approved by the city commission, things of that nature, multifamily development, or even single-family home development, which is a very large review process time for single-family homes, we would charge the $100. And that would just be a one-time fee, regardless of the re-reviews. And in comparison, again, like I mentioned, some other cities are charging this. This is just a list of other cities that we typically compare ourselves to. Some cities charge more, some cities charge about what we're proposing, a few cities charge a little bit less. We always look at not just comparable and like cities, but by population and by size. So you can see that this ranges from about $40 or $25 really to all the way up to $700 in Weston. And this is a condensed list, but there's a whole list of the way in which they're reviewing fees and they're reviewing permits. We felt it was much simpler to classify our review based on just the amount of time and the typical type of permit that we would be reviewing. Do you have any questions with this item?
I'm looking at Coral Springs. They don't charge anything.
They do not.
Okay.
Not every city does.
Okay. So my question was, why do we have to?
We don't. I'm bringing this forward to the commission's attention. That other cities do charge as a way to capture general fund fees. I'm paid through the general fund. My employees are paid through the general fund, yet they're reviewing building permits.
And this is specific to zoning review.
Zoning reviews only.
Okay.
Right. I mean,
So this isn't your average homeowner coming forward and wants to do something on their property. This is a zoning review.
Well, it's a building permit. So yeah, so if you're doing a single family fence, if you're doing a home, like a fence, an addition,
That would be this.
roof, yes, we review all those
So
types of permits.
Zoning review is just an additional part of the regular building permit you'd be coming forward to?
Yeah, so a building permit can be reviewed by 7 different agencies for the 4 of the building department, and then you have fire, engineering, and zoning. So fire charges a fee, engineering charges a fee, zoning is the only review of a building permit that does not charge a fee for their review.
And what are so they're the only ones that don't charge currently zoning.
Right.
And what are all the things that fall under zoning?
Anything that would be related to a setback, a use, height.
So currently right now, all those things come before us. They don't go through any other department. They just go through zoning and there's no fee.
No, I'm sorry if it's mentioned. So it goes as a building permit.
Right.
And then it's routed by the discipline.
Mhm.
right? So a permit could be routed to us for review, it could be routed to engineering for review, it could be routed to, you know, mechanical, depends on what it is. If it's a water heater, it's just one person reviewing it, it's just plumbing.
Yeah.
Right? If it's a roof, it could be up to 4 people reviewing it. If it's a brand new single family home, everyone's seeing.
So roof zoning would actually review?
Yes. We have to review for a few different reasons. Yeah. Consistency to if it's an association, if it's the correct type of
Okay.
roof,
I see what you're
shingle.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
As I mentioned, we review around 2,000 permits a year when the building department use somewhere around 6,000 to 7,000 permits a year. So
Okay.
we don't see every single permit, but we do see a lot of them.
Okay, thank you.
And finally, this is really not much of an issue, it's just additional language. You know, again, we've had this fee schedule since 2021. Every once in a while, we get a comment or a question from a contractor who, you know, brings up like, yeah, that's the information that we think you should have. So we felt that it was important for us to add some additional information to the building fee schedule, just so they have that information. They know exactly what state statute they're looking up. So, not exactly much, but what we did was we sort of rearranged some of the information on the fee schedule, so it was all in one place.
Thank you.
All right, with that, any additional questions?
I don't believe so. Thank you. I'm going to open it to the public. We might have more questions from the dais after that. Yes.
Roger Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. I think this is a great idea. I would totally support this. However, at the same time, my concern is that the city should be charging if they have to go out for multiple visits to inspect a roof, then the city should be either building the contractor, the builder, or the homeowner, depending on how the permit was scheduled. I see this firsthand all the time, and I think that our city is losing out on revenue because inspectors are sent to sites when there's nobody there due to lack of communication between the contractor and the end user. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. Since I kept hearing the words permitting and fees used during the presentation, I hope this question is appropriate. Many months ago, the commission asked former city manager David Santucci to do a study of how much it would cost to bring Calvin Giordano and Associates, what they do for the city, to bring that in-house. Could staff comment on what the status is of that report, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. In reviewing the different fees and different mentions, reviews, if we're going to increase the fees, then are we going to stand on a specific timeline? I know different organizations, one I'm particularly involved with, we've been waiting months to get a roofing permit. So if we're going to be charged additional fees when we're pulling permits, are we entitled to a better timeline from the department that is reviewing those permits? Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Close it to the public then. Can you address the multiple visits?
Absolutely. For Mrs. Freitag, I'm not familiar with the project you're talking about. I'd be happy to discuss it with her. Every discipline has 5 days to review a building permit. That's a state statute. With a first review of being a minimum of 30 days. So again, I mentioned that there's 7 departments that actually review a building permit. If you give everyone 5 days, that's 35 days. So unfortunately, with a lot of building permits, we actually have to meet that additional standard. But no building permit is taking additional time for that. We do multiple one-day permits, especially for roofs. So I'd be happy to discuss that with her to determine what we can do. We consistently exceed our minimum dates by state statute. Regarding the evaluation of CGA, so the 5-year contract expires in September 2025. A procurement bid is already in place. It is supposed to go out early next year for anyone who would be interested in taking that contract. At that time, it would be the staff's responsibility to provide to commission an evaluation of the building fund, whether we would want to stay with our current provider, move on to a different provider, or bring that department back in-house, and what all those costs would be. We've done that in 2020, in 2016 and in 2020, and we would do that again next year. I don't recall the specific request that was mentioned to Dave, but that is what we will do next year when this comes before the commission, is provide all of those costs to show whether or not there is a savings or what those changes would be. And we would evaluate total savings, essentially is what it is. Regarding inspections, this is something that we've been discussing internally now for a while. And I do expect this to be a conversation point with negotiation next year if we do move forward with CGA and renegotiating the contract. Essentially, the permit fee includes inspections unless you have to get paid for a reinspection. So Mr. Freitag mentioned, and I'm familiar with what he's referring to. So you go out the first time and something's wrong, you know, the permit, whatever, you know, we don't charge you. But if it happens the second time, we charge you a reinspection fee, right? So, you know, first one's on us thing. But you might go out one time for inspection. You might go out 10 times. We might go out 20 times. We have all these different departments that have to go out and do an inspection. So we don't believe that we're correctly collecting revenue for the inspections that we take place in. So, you know, we just did a permit here at City Hall, right? That's not very far of a walk for our inspector, but if you have to go down to sample in 44th, you know, that's a 20-minute drive, and those types of back and forth and how that day is calculated, right? You have to go back several times, you know, those types of things. So major projects, major building projects require hundreds of inspections. So even though that cost would be higher, we think we need to evaluate what a cost of a plan review and a cost of inspection is and truly understand those costs. So that is something that I think will come forward to you next year as a potential fee change.
Okay. Thank you. Just going back to private providers. So private providers can do single trade inspections, correct? So in other words, you can have the city do everything, but you've got a private provider doing plumbing.
Correct.
Okay. And they can also do virtual inspection, correct?
Virtual inspection is permitted now by Florida statute. I mean, we could do it too if we wanted to, but that was really more of a COVID thing. But yeah, it could happen still.
So my question on virtual is with the private provider, you know, to me, that leaves, I'm old school, that this leaves room for error, in my opinion. Who's on the hook when that goes bad? So let's say we do everything. They have, you know, the private provider electrical goes out there and does it. They do it virtual. They don't go out there. They do virtual. And there's an error and there's a mistake and there's a problem. Who's on the hook for that?
So the private provider acting as the contractor, you know, they have a liability insurance and they're required to carry that. And that's one of the things that the city is required to verify that they have. Okay. So, but essentially at the end of the day, that would be a civil matter where the property owner would have to essentially sue that private provider for failing for doing an incorrect inspection.
Okay. While we're looking at fees, and I don't want to digress at all, but we've been using what the county uses for land use level when it comes to affordable housing fee of $500 per unit.
Yes.
Okay. Is that something we're looking at going higher than that? Because I believe we're allowed to go higher, that we've just adopted what the county has.
Yeah, the county's actually done a few different things recently. That would be a very different thing. That would be a land development code item. You know, this is regarding the Florida Building Code, but I mean, that is something that certainly can be discussed. But just this past year, the county has provided multiple different options for how a developer can choose to pay, and they get to make the choice, not the city.
Okay, so it's taken out of our control.
It's not taken out of our control. We can provide that. I mean, that's something we can certainly review and look into, but at the end of the day, they may choose not to do it. Because they might be another option, which again, like is essentially providing affordable units into the property.
Right. Okay. No, that's fine. I know it's a little sidetracked, but if we're talking about fees and we're looking at some of these, we've talked about other things in the future. I'd like that to be something that
Yeah, we can evaluate that.
Thank you. Other than that, that's all I have. Anyone else? Looking for, this is an actual motionable item.
Motion
Vice
to
Mayor?
approve. Oh,
Yes, I wanted to comment. So, Mr. Power, if I read the back up in your presentation correctly, there's really 4 components to this that we're being asked to vote on. 1 is the private provider fees, 2, the notice of commencement fee, 3, the zoning review fee, and then 4, the additional language. Is that
That's correct.
a
Yes.
basic summary? So I think numbers 1 and 2, the private provider fee, which to the mayor's point, I'm not sure that's really going to come into play in our city. Why would I pay a private provider to do the inspection on my water heater and then have to pay the city a fee on top of that? It would be cheaper just to have the city do it. So I don't know that the private provider fee comes into play in our city. If at all, I suppose it could, but I don't really see a scenario where it would. I mean, a big scale development, I could see that. And then to the mayor's point, yes, if you have XYZ developer doing their own inspections for their own neighborhoods, I could definitely see where it could get a little shady in that particular situation. But whether it comes into play in the Deerfield Beach or not, I'm not convinced. But the private provider fee and the notice of commencement fee, I mean, those changes are required by state statute. So those are no brainers. We have but no choice to approve those. The zoning review fee is more discretionary for us tonight. I'm more of the mindset that falls into line when we renew. I don't see the urge to do, the need to do it tonight. I think that falls in line when we redo the contract and put all of our fees into play, including the affordable housing fee that the mayor was talking about. So to change that on the spot, I'm not really sure that's the thing to do. And then the additional language fee, excuse me. Again, I think that's an easy no-brainer as well for cleaning up the language. So if we, depending on my colleagues, I mean, I don't want to vote no just because I'm against one of the 4 items there. If we could maybe bifurcate the vote and approve 3, and vote on the zoning review fee separately. I don't know what my colleague's temperature is on that, but I think I'd like to see that then be a no vote on 3 of the 4 things I'm actually in favor of.
Okay, we have a motion right now. Are you interested in, well, do we have a second for the motion that's been made, which is to approve everything? Do we have a second on that? Okay, dies without a second. Would you like to make a revised motion, Vice Mayor?
Well, I guess I can make one motion to all 4 to approve the private provider fee, the notice of commencement fee, and the additional language, and to disapprove the zoning review fee. Is that okay, city manager?
Do you have a
Or city
comment on
attorney?
that, Mr. Power?
I just wanted to point out, I think there is one other change. That's $50 increase you had on there, correct?
There
Mr.
is
Power?
part of the notice of commencement fee would be to change the high velocity permit from 75 to 125.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out that that was another change. So I think, yeah, you could make the motion to approve without the new proposed zoning fees.
The zoning fee is at the discretion of the commission. This is something that we identified as what other cities are doing, and we feel that it would be important to identify where general fund sources go to, but that is at the discretion of the commission.
I see the need for it. I just don't know that tonight is the night to do it. So that's my motion. We'll see what happens.
Why not tonight?
I just to pick out this one individual fee out of all the fees in the code. I mean, we could revise all of the fees tonight, but to pick this particular one just because we don't have it.
So you'd be open to revisiting it at a later date when we look at other
Yes,
fees?
I would. I just don't think tonight is that night, but I would when we consider everything. Yes.
Okay. So your motion is again?
To approve the private provider notice of commencement fees and the additional language, and to disapprove the zoning review fee.
And the other fee as well, the
High velocity whatever. That's-
To approve it or to not approve the high velocity
No,
increase?
to approve, I mean, because that's under the notice of commencement, so to approve that.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Okay, looks like it dies without a second.
I'll make that second.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Drosky, second by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston, Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, we are now at comments by administration and legal. I have one comment tonight. I'm requesting an executive session, the litigation style Class Act Restaurant Group LLC versus City of Deerfield Beach and City of Deerfield Beach versus Class Act Restaurant Group LLC. Those are case numbers 23-020060 and case number 23-020079 in the 17th Judicial Circuit of Broward County, as well as Class Act Restaurant Group LLC versus City of Deerfield Beach, U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida, case number 24-CV-61127. And I'll work with clerk's office and manager's office on scheduling that.
Great.
I'm gonna go. The only comment that I have is regarding the residential garbage collection route. The commission hasn't seen this and it hasn't been revised really in more than 10 years. So I wanted to go over this very quickly as part of a larger organizational view of efficiencies and cost containment. We've been looking at several different areas, and this is one that came up. It's in sustainable management regarding to garbage collection. So what we're proposing is that this new garbage collection schedule is basically improving the collection efficiency. It takes and rebalances what has essentially gone out of balance over several years, where developments have formed and where routes have just been inserted to accommodate those communities. It reduces the operational costs overall, so that saves money. We will enhance customer service. You'll see, I'm going to show you a map in a minute. One of the problems with the customer service side and also on the finance side is the way we currently pick up residential garbage is we might have a truck picking up over by Powerline and another truck somewhere over by A1A. And so if the truck goes down on A1A, one of the backups is coming from the opposite side of the city, so it may be there a lot longer. The trash may not even get picked up that day. So now we might need to spend overtime for collectors to be out there finishing the job. So this is typically, most cities look at this every few years, but as I mentioned, it's been well over 10 years since we've looked at this. A component of this you'll see in a moment is the outreach, where we will message through the water bills. We'll also do a social media campaign for 2 months, and then we'll also have a month of accommodation. I'll explain that in a moment. And doing press releases on our website and of course through the Waste Watch application that we have. We did this, if you'll recall, with the bulk pickup several years ago, and that worked effectively. Can you go to the next one, please? Thank you. This is what currently we have split up across the city. You can see a lot of overlap. What this ends up causing is one truck is going back and crossing the path of another route. It's very chaotic in some places, particularly where you see the overlaps where the blue is overlapping with orange and the pink with the green, et cetera. So in order to reduce the number of routes and also to make the city more efficient, they were looking particularly at this central corridor to see how we could accommodate reducing those routes and consolidating our trucks into one location. In this particular map that you see, the pink and the green are currently collected on Monday and Thursday, and the blue and the orange are collected on Tuesdays and Fridays. And another issue that they're running into, even with these routes, are the major highways. And particularly, we want to get ahead of the game with some of the construction projects that are coming in to the city as well. Certainly the 1045 project, but the 10th Street project and all of those things that are coming online. So the proposal is, the next slide, is to actually split the city right down I-95. As it turns out, this resulted in just over 10,000 residential pickups west of 95 and just under 10,000 residential pickups east of 95. But this allows all of our trucks to be in one zone of the city at one time. Trying to fight traffic getting back and forth on their routes has now been avoided to go with this model. The model that you see in front of you, what is that, Peach, I guess, is Monday and Thursday. A lot of people would stay the same on Monday and Thursday. And the green area would be Tuesday and Friday. And there are a lot of people in there that would still be Tuesday and Friday. Some are changing though. And so we would definitely make sure that the messaging in those areas is heavy so that they're aware of it. The next slide, please. So the idea is in January and February to get the outreach, the messaging, and to coordinate that in some of the communities through HOAs and other mechanisms. And then the new collection routes beginning in March. And during the month of March also, code compliance will be out assisting residents by letting them know that if they happen to have their garbage out on the wrong day, hey, the days have changed, and providing them a flyer so that by April, everybody is on the same page and on target. Okay, that's really my only comment.
And this will be brought back before us to vote on?
I'm sorry?
This will be brought back before us to vote on?
It's really an efficiency that we're doing. We just want to make you aware of it so that if the public has questions about it, I'm more than happy to try to answer those now. If they have the questions.
Okay. So I guess you're doing it. is what
We're doing
you're
it,
saying.
yes.
Yeah.
It saves the taxpayers money and it makes it a lot more efficient for us to pick up the trash.
Okay. So we're not even voting on it. All right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
No more comments? We are now on city commission business. Item 18 is a resolution of the city commission of the city of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving and authorizing execution of an agreement with Gwendolyn McDonald, Barry McMillan, and Jeffrey Copeland Jr. for the operation and maintenance of a community garden at the property located at 448 Northwest First Terrace and 455 Northwest First Avenue for a term commencing upon execution ending on December 31st, 2026, with 2 one-year renewal options, providing for water infrastructure and water service to the community garden, providing for an effective date. This item is being sponsored by Commissioner Preston. Mr. Preston, I don't know if you want to make a statement or if you want me to give an overview.
For the longest time, so many residents in the city of Deerfield Beach have asked about a community garden. And during my first election cycle, and Mayor, I'm sure you remember, there was so many people that was talking about a community garden. In fact, there was area designated for that. And there were several people that was really into this and pushed this forward, and as a tremendous tool to bring our city together. It never, ever came to fruition. And then the idea came up again about a community garden. And after sitting with the McDonald family and the Copeland, we were able to get a vision, and that vision now comes to fruition. And I will tell you, the family that we're dealing with is a tremendous family. In the back of the room is that family, and we have one of the most talented growers around, and that is Jeffrey Copeland. He has a green thumb. He is so good that he is capable of growing new commissioners. And so
I don't think that's helping them at all.
But I will tell you, this is an opportunity for mentoring. It's a lot of good things that will come out of this. We sat with the city attorney to get everything ironed out so that the city could embrace this. And I will tell you, and I was saying to my colleagues, I hope that you know, they are actually committing their own land. So this is not, the city is not, you know, producing their property, which is very unusual. And I'm very, very happy that we were able to get to this point. This is something that's going to benefit our community. I want to thank the McDonald family and everyone that's involved to bring this. They're going to be able to partner with different groups. You know, we've talked about high school kids getting their hours in there, people being able also to help feed, you know, people in our city right across the street, the Palms. This is a tremendous project that has been brought forward by a great family, and I endorse this 100%. And you know, I hope we can just bless this program and get it going. It's been far too long. It's just been sitting and sitting. We finally got everything worked out. It's on the agenda, and I'm hoping that we can, you know, adopt this tonight.
Thank you. Is there any explanation from staff or any details on it?
If you have any specific questions, let me know. We are requiring them to indemnify the city in terms of liability exposure and provide for appropriate insurance.
Right. So our discussions that we had is, you know, this is a community garden that's going into a residential neighborhood. And while we have buy-in from all the neighborhood, they're in case we are covered in case there's an issue in the future with having something like that in residential.
Yeah, you do have a termination for convenience provision, frankly, for both sides. You know, if 6 months they decide they no longer want to do it, or if in 6 or 12 months the city decides that this isn't in the best interest of the city to continue anymore, there is a termination for convenience provision.
And the only cost to the city is paying for the water that's used for the actual irrigation of the actual.
That's one of the costs. That's probably like the recurring costs, you would say, but there are some upfront capital costs associated with installing some of the landscaping. I think it's a bench and a trellis, as well as a fence that they would install.
Yeah, from security standpoint, how is security going to be handled on this to prevent people from going in there?
They are required to install a fence that's reasonably acceptable to the city. So they would present that, you know, and probably get a fence permit as well. And the security would be up to them. The city would have no expense in connection with the security aspect of it. They would be responsible for security and maintaining the garden and operating the garden on a daily basis.
Okay, I bring it up because we know we've had Miss Bracy in here many times, who lives in that neighborhood, who's talked about some of the issues we have with the park over there, which is not far from this. And I'm afraid that once we have incredible gardening over there and incredible food, that we might have some people, you know, rotating over there. But a fence will be provided for security.
They're required to install a fence. That's correct.
Okay, great. I took part of a build for Habitat for Humanity along with a lot of other staff this year, just a few blocks from there. And the soil is unbelievable. I mean, it is the most, it is as dark as your suit is, rich with nutrients. It's a dream. My grandmother would have been rolling over for the opportunity to use that soil to garden with. I think people like Barbara Miranda and so many others that used to come to meetings many, many years ago, begging for something like this. I want to thank the families for doing this and taking this on. This is phenomenal. I know there's a little bit of risk for us, but I think we're covered with it. And I think they've done a great job in working with us to try to understand that and bring it forward. But I really want to thank you and look forward to seeing this grow and prosper. So thank you so much for that. This has my full support. Commissioner Hudak?
Hey, I'm just curious about this water infrastructure. So I'm assuming it's a sprinkler system, and who's, you know, what the cost is to install that and who'll be maintaining it as well.
Do you want to answer that? Or I could tell you that there are costs. There's a spreadsheet in the backup, like Exhibit B. It looks like it's on page 17 of 80. In the backup, you'll see a spreadsheet there that lays out, I think it's like a line item description And then it has a unit cost with a total cost for each item.
And who's responsible for maintaining the sprinkler
So
system?
they are responsible for maintaining the sprinkler or the irrigation equipment. I think the city probably does. I don't know if we do like an annual backflow prevention inspection, but they would be responsible for maintaining their property and the equipment on their property.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Drosky.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, Commissioner Preston, this is on private property, correct? So interestingly enough, I just want to make that clarification. Interestingly enough, before this agenda came out with this backup, I watched a Florida League of Cities seminar, and part of the seminar was a robust discussion about community gardens. And many cities are experiencing later like deterioration in the gardens. Once the founders, step away and new people come in, then it's not the same as when it first started, and cities are anticipating and having difficulty with their community gardens. And some of them aren't gardens anymore. They're going back to whatever the property was in the first place. The difference here is those are on public property. This is on private property, and I'm fully convinced that the McDonald and McMillan and Copeland families are invested in this going forward. So that's what's going to make this a full success. I wish you guys nothing but the best. I can see the hope back there, and we're all going to be looking forward to it. So it has my full support.
Thank you. The only comment that I'll say, I know we're limiting the access to the garden too, which is Deerfield Beach residents. Before we get it open, I want to make sure that we have it ironed out how you would go about it, what that process is, what kind of identifications needed to prove that, just to make sure you have your ducks in a row before we open this up, so we don't have that ironed out while it's open, and we have all of the logistics of that worked out. I encourage staff and the families to work together to make sure that goes smoothly and it doesn't become a headache for you guys and become problematic. So as long as we can get that in line as far as what the policy and procedure is, and make sure that goes smooth before we open up, I think that's great. It is limited to, let me just go back to where it says, I'm sorry.
It's 5G, Mayor, on page 4. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Participants, residents of the city.
Yes.
Or participants from the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate that. Okay. You want to make a motion? Oh, wait, I'm going to open it to the public. I apologize. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item?
Roger Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street, Deerfield Beach, Florida. Just have a few questions. Is this a garden of flowers? Is this a garden that will provide vegetables, lettuce? I'm just curious, as the city of Deerfield Beach did have a garden that was a vegetable garden. Unfortunately, it had sand dumped on it, and as it stands right now, the city of Deerfield Beach no longer has a vegetation garden for carrots, beans, and other fun items. I was just wondering if there's any move towards getting that back down by the city campus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Barry McMillan, 456 Northwest First Terrace. I just want to say on behalf of the McDonald Copeland family, thank you all so much for giving us the opportunity to serve the city of Deerfield Beach. We're extremely excited about this garden. We feel that it's going to connect all of Deerfield Beach. And that's what we want to make sure. This is just not a connection for a certain area. It's a connection for the whole entire city of Deerfield Beach. And in reference to what you said, Mayor Gantz, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things we were looking at was forming like what you call a membership club, so we could identify who our residents are by way of a membership type of club. But most importantly, just want to say thank you. We're excited. The garden is almost here, guys. So the first pot of collard greens belong to you. All right, so thank you all so much.
So I guess that answers the question. I'm going to ask you, Ms. McMillan, before you run off, if you don't mind. You're probably one of the best people to ask. The question that by the other gentleman was, is
Yes.
it vegetables or flowers? But I know collard greens are.
Yeah, actually, it's a combination of both. Jeffrey actually specializes in vegetables and his mom specializes in flowers. She does a very beautiful rose garden as well. So we are looking at it's a combination of both.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. You have questions? Okay.
I have a question for you. So when you say a membership, so is this going to be where people kind of pick out their own little spot and grow their own?
We are looking at
food
what they call
or-
plots.
Okay,
We are looking at that where you can actually do a membership where you can do your own plot. So that's yours. You
Uh-huh.
and, whomever you like. And it's very therapeutic for a lot of us, especially our seniors. And even like my brother, he's autism. It's very therapeutic for them. So like I say, this is bigger than just the garden. It's social, it's mental health, it's a lot of things encompassed. And we really, like we said, we're working with some other organizations too. So
Thank you.
thank you.
time goes.
Thank you, Ms.
Good.
McMillan. Appreciate it. Michelle, you want to speak? Okay. Anyone else? Close it to the public then. Thank you. I will say this, make sure you work with us on the membership clubs. It's not part of our backup as far as that I thought idea. So let's make sure that we have that in line, that it's not a fee to be a member, even though we're doing, so we can work that out. Just make sure that we have that cleared.
Motion to approve?
Okay. Motion, Commissioner Preston.
Second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes?
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 19 is an update regarding city manager recruitment and potential shortlisting of candidates. I believe Mr. Jim Deneen is on Zoom from MGT Consulting to provide you an update. There he is.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Commission. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm here to give you a quick update on the
Mr.
recruitment
Deneen, can you
process.
just give us your name for the record, please?
Oh, yes, sorry about that.
It's okay.
James Deneen, I'm with MGT or GovHR. I'm the recruiter for the city manager position.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, like I said, I'm here to give you a quick update on the recruitment process to fill the city manager's position. We had a really good response during the advertising period, which ended December 9th. We received 90 total applicants from 20 different states and 58 individuals directly from Florida. After reviewing all the applicants, looking at all their resumes, looking at the material they sent us, I interviewed at length 9 of the most qualified candidates, of which 6, I believe, are the strongest candidates, at least to best meet your needs based on what you told me. So obviously the next step is to try and figure out how we get to the in-person interviews. You will be getting a book from my office that it's an electronic book. You should get it by Friday. You'll probably get it Thursday. In that, it will have a list of all the applicants that applied, a list of the 9 most qualified, and I'll mention which are the 6 strongest. You will get everything that they've given us in terms of their resumes, any cover letters, anything else they sent us, together with what we call FI form, which is a information form that they need to fill out. That'll all be included in this book. What you need to do once you get this is take a look. Obviously, the commission can hire whoever they want. These are I think of the top 9 people. First thing I think that the commission needs to decide is, a lot of times commissions decide this. What is is there a maximum number that you want to interview in person? Usually the interviews in person take no less than about 45 minutes. So you have to decide that. Then we have to figure out a process that you want to use to get from the 9 but down to whatever that number is. Obviously, you can do it at a regular council meeting or a regular commission meeting, or you can do it on a special, if you do a special meeting. That you obviously have to talk to your attorney. You have to figure out how you want to handle this. I'm here to answer any of your questions you have. We got a good response. And so the question will now be getting down to the group of people you want to interview in person.
Thank you. Just first question, you mentioned 9 of the most qualified you reduced the list to, but you're going to be moving forward 6. Did I mishear that?
No, what I'm going to do is give you the whole list of 9. I think 6 of the 9 are a little stronger when it comes to meeting the requirements that you specifically asked for in terms of how they would fit culturally and the things that the different commissioners told me that they stressed. So, whether they had certain strengths in budgeting, whether they had certain people skills, that all depends on the individual. And I try to ascertain this as I talk to them privately on one-on-one interviews, based on my experience.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions on the board?
So your next city commission meeting is January 14th, 2025. At least that's the next regularly scheduled city commission meeting. And I think, at least for my purposes and probably the HR director, just a little direction on whether you want to wait till then. You're going to get these packets towards the end of the week to consider those candidates and potentially shortlist from the list of 9 that the recruiter is going to provide you. Or do you want staff to work on potentially scheduling a special meeting for this purpose?
Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you. Well, I think, after we get the packet, I think it's important that at least do some, Zoom interviews or something before we fly people in. I think it's important, in my background, once you get to a certain level, everybody has the skill set in order to do the job. And it really comes down to who's going to be the cultural fit. And you really can't tell that from a piece of paper. You really have to have the opportunity to meet the individuals. And I think the initial meeting could be, electronically, as opposed to, having the expense of flying them in, putting them at a hotel, their inconvenience as well. So, in my opinion, after we get the respective packets, we do have to have some kind of a meeting to determine who are the 4 or so that we would like to interview, and whether we do that as a group or previously we did that as individuals. We met with them, the final candidates, and then we also had them here, at the commission for, I guess, final interviews. I'm not sure exactly, what you called that. But I think it's important that, after we get the packet, we all need to kind of agree on the 4 or 5 that we feel we want to actually meet, and whether that's electronically initially and then personally, I guess we can discuss that as well.
Right. So I guess the direction, at least I'm looking for, is, do you want to have that meeting to discuss who those 3, 4, 5 are and shortlisting them down do you want that to occur on January 14th, which would be your next regularly scheduled meeting? Or do you want myself and staff to work on a potential special meeting to have?
I know we have the holidays coming up, so I don't know what everybody's availability is.
Right. Well, I think if you give us the direction, hey, yeah, we would like to do it as a special meeting, then I'll work with staff to coordinate.
I'd be in favor of a special meeting. I think it's worthy of that.
Yeah, I think Mr. Deneen and I are just looking for direction on do you want to do a January 14th or do you want to do a special meeting, and we can coordinate the dates?
Do a special meeting.
Okay.
I would have to agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Commissioner Preston?
I don't know that we have to do a special meeting. I can see why it provides some advantages, but I'm just curious to know, why do we have to do a special meeting? I'm just, my colleagues.
So I don't want to wait till the 14th of January. We've already waited since October.
So you think a lot's going to get done? We're going to, it's still a long wait in front of us. I don't know that the 14th solves anything.
Oh, we're going to do nothing for a month?
No, we're getting a packet.
Okay, and then what? We're going to sit on it for a month?
We evaluate that packet, and we have the ability to talk with the city manager or make some decisions. I don't see what's the big thing that we're gonna get. I can understand the meeting, and if that's what we want to do, is what you guys vote on, that's fine. But I don't see that it's going to answer anything at that meeting.
In my opinion, what the meeting will do will at least identify the candidates that we have interest in to start scheduling interviews. But otherwise, they're waiting for a month, we're waiting for a month, and no decisions are being made. That's my opinion.
I'm under the same opinion. I think it's better to move the process along a little bit faster. I don't think it needs to be a very lengthy meeting, but I think it's worthy of having a separate meeting to be able to go, because it might get lengthy. I don't know. But I think it's worthy of it. I'd rather not waste, but I'd rather not delay any further and move it forward. So that's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've given you some direction, you got some idea, and if there's difference, let us know.
Did you have anything further, Jim?
No, that's everything. Once we get the date, then the commission can decide how they want to whittle down the number. One of the things I would encourage you to do is think about what is the maximum number you think you would, well, I've some commissions do this. They figure out the maximum number that they are willing to interview, and then it makes the goal a little bit easier, because then you know what number you're trying to get to. And usually the max anybody interviews is about 5. But that's up to the commission. Once you do that, I will tell you, I think the one commissioner mentioned about you have to talk to the people. I try to figure out the best connection between the chemistry and the cultural fit of the people. That's why I said I thought 6 of them were stronger than the other 3. Part of it had to do with cultural fit. But I will tell you, as you probably all realize, nothing that man has invented, okay, in this field supplants an in-person interview at the dais where the person doesn't know what the questions are ahead of time. Because I think you really get to understand people that way. And that, quite frankly, I did the job for a long time. That's a big part of the job, being able to answer from the field.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further, you're now at comments by mayor and city commission.
Okay, we'll start with District 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I forget, of course, happy holidays to everybody.
That's all right.
Oh, District
No, you
4,
keep
look at
going.
that. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Go ahead.
That's all right. Congratulations on your move. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I understand why. You go right ahead.
Well, I'll continue for District 4, and then you could do for District 1. How
No,
about
go ahead. Go ahead. District 1, go ahead, Commissioner Hudak. Sorry.
Well, happy holidays for everybody in District 4, as well as District 1 and 2 and 3. A quick couple of questions. First of all, we've had some challenges with FP&L over the last since the last hurricane. Lights being out, power lines being down, trees not being trimmed. Mr. City Manager, have we gotten any resolution on any of this that we have experienced?
So a lot of, as I mentioned to some of you in individual conversations, FPL has a lot of their staff deployed out of the area still. There's still a lot of infrastructure issues outside of our area, but we are struggling. Everyone in South Florida is struggling with FPL issues. Even our, in various parts of our city, our parking lot, down on some of our roadways, major roadways. So we are still struggling with that. It is a matter of their resources. I have a meeting coming up with our local FPL representative to discuss it further. And as soon as I have that meeting, I will get back to each of you and let you know what the status is.
I appreciate it. The second issue or challenge I have is solutions for our small businesses on the S-curve. They're struggling. I got another call today of a business who will probably be closing due to the lack of traffic down there. Part of this is the city's fault. Part of it is my fault. But the impact of closing that pier, I don't think any of us had the foresight to see how these businesses would be suffering with the lack of traffic. And I know we weren't very proactive in establishing programs or something to help these businesses. So I was just curious if we've got any solutions. It's kind of late in the game for this one. But I know we're starting to do these pop-up events, but are there any, financial loans that the city is aware of that these businesses can apply for, short-term solutions? I know we just talked earlier before our meeting, so I don't know if there's any solutions that you could at least look into to try to communicate to some of these businesses, because this pier's not going to open until September. And when it does, there's not going to be a lot of small businesses down there. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, District 2.
Mayor, I have a question for you.
Yes.
With what my colleague just said, is it possible for us to come up with something that can help? During the time that we were during the COVID crisis, we became creative in how we can address some of those concerns. And I don't know what we can do, but maybe we should think of doing something to help those business people. They are in the city of Deerfield Beach. They're brought their business here. They gave us an opportunity of paying taxes. I don't think we can just not pay attention or ignore it. So however we can help you, I just think that we as a dais should really ask staff to come up with some ideas about how we can address this. This is very concerning. I mean, we can't just say people are going to go out of business and, because the pier is not opening to September. Can we provide for them some kind of a relief? Is it possible? We need to at least explore that. Some residents have been calling me about the school situation in District 2, the potentiality of schools being closed, lower ratings in the schools. And I was asked specifically, what is the city's plan? So let me just say this. The city doesn't run it. The city can't build a plan and give it to the school board. The school board creates the plan. By the way, unless something has changed, the city is very limited as to its contribution when those kinds of decisions are made. In other words, we don't get a chance to sit at the board, at the table, and cast a vote that is meaningful. The school board is its own entity. And the schools that are in the city of Deerfield Beach, regardless of district, is not run by the city. So I understand why you're contacting me and your concern, but the city does not make those decisions. That's the school board. And so I would suggest that you talk to the school board representative and see if you can get some answers. I would also like to just say to my colleagues that I've been in some recent meetings about, getting the Packer Rattlers back on board. So those meetings are just beginning, so that by the summer that we have a smooth rollout of getting the Packer Rattlers re-involved in our community, and that we will have a complementary of teams. So I'm looking forward to that. I would like to say to all the residents out there, District 1, 2, 3, and 4, we go through many, many challenging issues in our city, and sometimes things are pretty tough. So in this holiday season, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa. Just enjoy your holidays. I also want to say to you to remember all of the police officers out there that will be extra busy for what they're doing, and our fire department as well. A lot of times we miss it. We take it for granted that these guys do their job. But I'm going to tell you, as a former firefighter, this is a busy time, and I'm so proud of them. These guys and women put their lives on the line. And you don't think about it all the time, but let's wish them a Merry Christmas and safety, and hope that they get through it, because they have families too. And so hopefully, with our police officers, our firefighters, that you be safe during the holidays and enjoy your family. And if you was to ask any of them from either organization, you know what they would say? Thank you for the opportunity to serve. So we need to remember that. And as we go through this holiday season, that's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you. District 4, you want to comment on District 1?
No. I do want to bring up a couple issues tonight. One, I've never been a big fan of add-ons to the agenda. I'm always a fan of having it on the agenda and then the backup so it's available to the public so they know what's coming before the commission, so they have an opportunity to review it and be prepared. As far as I'm concerned, there were 2 add-ons tonight. The first was the approval by the commission for the Nature Center grant. I get it, because the deadline is the 20th, so there was an absolute need to act tonight. The second one was the garbage collection routes. So I would like to see that, Mr. City Manager, added to the January 14 agenda. If nothing else than just a presentation, even though you presented it tonight, just so the public that wasn't here or wasn't expecting it has the ability to review it, be prepared, and it's, on the website for everyone to look at. So I don't like to put the public at a disadvantage. I do want them to have the opportunity to do their homework like we have the opportunity to do our homework. So if we could just add that to the next agenda. I know you went over it tonight, so I don't know that you need to go through it in the painstaking detail that you did tonight. But I do think the public needs to know that this is coming, and plus it's more public education for what's coming, and I think the residents would benefit by that. Secondly, is I want to comment on Commissioner Hudak's proposal about the S-curve. I hope whatever you're contemplating or directing staff to do is to all of the businesses in Deerfield Beach, not just those on the S-curve, because there's businesses outside the S-curve that are hurting as well. So I know we have an economic development director. So whatever proposal comes from that, I would just want to make sure is citywide, not specific to the S-curve. I don't think that was your intent, but I just wanted to make sure that whatever comes forward applies to all of our businesses across the board. And I also next want to thank the multitude of people that came out last Friday night to the boat parade. It was extremely well attended. I mean, there must have been 400 to 500 people that were there that evening. I mean, they were 5-6 deep along the front of Sullivan Park there to watch the boats. The boats were actually on time. And it was it was a really, really great event. I mean, there was a ton of kids that were playing around. It was a great promotion for Deerfield Beach. It was a great promotion for Sullivan Park. To showcase the evening like that was a really good turnout, and I think it was a big benefit to our city just to kind of showcase what we have in our city, and that was a great opportunity to do that. So I want to thank the many, many people, even though it was windy that night. The many people that came out to it. And with that, I think that's a great segue into wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah. There's some major holidays coming out there. Be careful, be nice to each other, and Happy New Year. We'll see you next year.
Thank you. Couple things. It was suggested to me that we look into doing a memorial plaque for a former city employee. Some of us, we know I know we have a policy when it comes to naming streets. I completely understand that. And whatever policy we need to act on to move forward with this, I'd like to see us do this. But last March, Hugh Anderson passed away, and he was a former city Deerfield Beach employee. He worked 27 years for the Deerfield Beach, starting as a lifeguard and ending up as our community services director, and actually served as an interim city manager for a brief period of time. I don't think he had a 90-day period that he was only allowed to hold that position, but he actually held that position for a brief period of time under Jean Robb of the 80s, not Jean Robb in her 80s. So that was a challenge either way. But he was really really made an impact on the city. And some of us here, I've been here for over 30 years now. I don't remember him that well. I knew of him, but I know the giant anchor that we have located over at the Kirk Cottrell Pavilion. He's responsible for making that happen and had a big impact on the city of Deerfield Beach. He was 90 years old when he passed away in March, but it doesn't take away from his impact. So it has been suggested that we do some type of memorial plaque that's there. There might even be people from the public who want to come forward and pay for it. But I know some of our, we have a policy in place, but I'd like that to be explored and looked into. And the gentleman's name is Hugh Anderson, is his name. We can look into that. I'd appreciate it. I want to thank BSO for all their hard work. And we saw tonight how great those men and women are in our city and the wonderful job they do with a fantastic chief that we have. And despite all of our hard work and all the things we're trying to do to reduce some of the things that happened, a little over a week ago, we had a 20-year-old young man get killed at Hillsborough and 45th Avenue around 6 o'clock during a weekday. 2 people were involved, the 16-year-old girl turning into her neighborhood and this gentleman that was heading west on Hillsborough. Hit so hard that the girl's car caught on fire. She was pulled from it, and everybody thought it was a hit and run because they didn't see where the other car went. They assumed it kept on going. What they didn't realize, it jumped the curve, went up the mound, hit into the trees, and was there with everybody surrounded around the one car, thinking it was gone and not realizing that car was there. The young man unfortunately passed away. I don't know what the factors were that were involved in that, but I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to speculate that speed may have been involved with it. So I want to press BSO that continue the due diligence that you're doing. And despite your best efforts, we know things happen. You can't be everywhere at once, but people, please slow down, especially during these holiday season. That young man's family is ruined their holidays and the rest of their lives. Operation Santa is this Saturday, December 21st. BSO is going to be putting that on along with city staff. So looking forward to that. And I want to thank you for doing that. So please be on the lookout. We know Santa's busy this time of year. We're lucky to get him for the December 21st. So we're glad to have him. The water taxi has announced that they're adding 11 new stops. Majority of them are in Pompano Beach, Lighthouse Point, a few in Lauderdale by the Sea. The biggest problem we have is everyone will say, well, why aren't we bringing this here? I know it was covered briefly during our CRA meeting. The biggest problem is it's a huge stretch from their last stop by the time they get to Deerfield Beach. We don't have a lot of commercial property for a water taxi to go to along the waterway for it to make sense to go from, I think the last stop is maybe Sands Harbor or Caps, somewhere around there, to fill that gap in a no wake zone and take a water taxi all the way up to really the Cove area. It is a long stretch and might not be able to be justified due to the numbers. So I want people to think about that, but we should be creative. Creativity is something that I think is lacking when it comes to our economic development. A couple things that were brought up tonight. What are we doing the S-curve? Last night I ate along the S-curve. Tried to go into one restaurant. It was at 6:30 at night. It was a 30-40 minute wait for 2 people to get in. That's how packed they were. I walked right next door and I was able to easily get in. So I think it depends on the actual place itself that they're doing. So for have a place that you can grab a seat, no problem, to have another place you got to wait 30 minutes to get in is a big stretch. And yet in a restaurant across the way was jam-packed outside with people in every seat. So it is a mixed bag down there. We know that the pier had to close. There's no way around it. You had to close that to be able to do that. The businesses in the S-curve benefit from all of these special events that we have down at the beach. And a lot of them don't participate in advertising or sponsorship or anything like that for a lot of events we have. Doesn't mean they should be punished and we should be ignoring them. We certainly need to go ahead and help out wherever we can. And as Vice Mayor Drosky pointed out, citywide. But I do think when you have a large project that potentially has an impact on some of those businesses, it's important for us to try to mitigate that. And we do that through creativity. As I said, that's lacking. The event that happened for the viewing of the boat parade, sponsored by the CRA, in the CRA budget, that had no plans of even happening had it not been for our interim city manager stepping in after we found out, well, when is the viewing section going to happen? That was only put together a week before the event. No thanks to our city staff from the CRA, because they chose not to bring it to the CRA board to let them decide whether that should be there, despite the fact that it was in the budget. The city manager stepped in and made sure that event took place, and they did a phenomenal job. So I want to thank the city manager for doing that. But I am disappointed with the decisions that are made out of economic development and the CRA, which I think needs to work hand in hand with helping some of those businesses along the S-curve and citywide. So yes, we should come up with some plans. I'm not looking for loans, that the city do loans to businesses or anything like that, but there's ways that we can do certain things to stimulate some activity. Keeping our beaches area nice and clean is a big part of it. Making it, it's difficult during turtle lighting to make it, we got enough lights with the holiday lights to make it fun down there. But, in the weather, it was windy as hell last night and still the beach was jam-packed. But whatever we can do from a creative standpoint needs to happen. But I think it needs to happen with more leadership from our city manager in addressing what needs to happen from an economic development standpoint, because it's simply not happening. The results that we're getting, the efforts that are being put in are pathetic, in my opinion. And it needs to change and needs to change right away. So whatever we need to do to make that happen, let's come up with some ideas. Let's bring them forward at our next commission meeting that we have. Some ideas to help them through this. Keep in mind, with our centennial coming up, there's going to be a heck of a lot of events in the city, and a lot of them are going to be over along the S-curve. So those businesses are going to be able to benefit from those. But there's ways to be creative to make sure that some of these events that we're doing can be done in a way that impacts those residents. We have two beach ride services. We have beach rides and we have freebie that can be utilized. And none of those things are really being properly utilized. And that, in my opinion, falls directly on staff. Not the city manager or some of the other staff. We talked about marketing. Our marketing department's phenomenal. But if the CRA director or economic development director doesn't have it in their mindset to go and utilize that really excellent department properly, it's a waste and it doesn't go anywhere. So that needs to change right now. So I hope that does. I hope by the time we have our next commission meeting that we're going to have some discussions about what we can do and some creative ideas and how we can mesh all this together to benefit some of our businesses and give a good time to all of our residents that are out there. So I hope we can do that soon. I believe that's all I have. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy Kwanzaa. This time of year, enjoy your time with your family. We did ethics training this week, or finished up our ethics training. And what was interesting in that ethics training, one of the things they talked about is how this meeting is it's really a business meeting. It's a limited public forum for commentary, right? We do more than most cities do. Zoom comments are they're not required by Florida law. You can view it, but you can't comment. And that's what Florida law says. We're not required to make that happen, but we do it. There's one of the things I'm going to ask the city attorney to look at. We talk about disruptions and behavior that happens within our meetings. And one of the things they talk about in the ethics meetings was sometimes it's not just behavior of verbal, people shouting out and screaming, but it's nonverbal behavior as well. Intimidating looks, things like that. We've had that happen. We had it here tonight. Last meeting, we had someone stomp out angrily and act like a child. And then we had someone do a stare down as they walked down. That's frequently happened. It's happened to female staff. It's happened to board members when a decision someone doesn't like and they want to act like a child. That is something that actually, according to the ethics training that we got, can be addressed in these meetings. And I know BSO has spoken to certain individuals for their behavior in that way. The intimidating looks have been witnessed by BSO, and it shouldn't be tolerated. So I hope we look at that and come up with a policy, or at least give some direction to our chief to take some action when this kind of thing happens. We're all, grown men up here. We can all take it. And if we were grown women, we'd be able to take it too for the most part. But some of it gets out of hand. And I want to make sure we have that in line to be able to take some action on it. We can't help what stupid people do and be childish. But when it gets to a point where it's trying to be intimidating, I think there's action we can take. And we should. And it's not just taking them out in the parking lot and knocking their head around. It's something else we can do. So let's look at it a more friendlier way if we could in the holiday spirit. With that, thank you all. God bless you and good night.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.